Story 1. In today's story, a disillusioned woman divorces her husband of 17 years and goes on to increase her body count, only to end up regretting her choices. My name is Ronald, and I'm 51 years old. My ex-wife, Kathy, is 47. We have two sons. One is 18 and the other is 19. I work at a consulting firm where we help with financial investments. I make good money, but I have to work hard for it. Let me tell you about my ex-wife. She's beautiful and was a wonderful wife for 17 years. She took care of our kids, planned our holidays, and was the star of family gatherings. I've always tried to be a good provider for my family because as a husband, I believe that's my responsibility. I spent many hours in the office and traveled thousands of miles to make sure my family has the best and can enjoy a great life. My wife was beautiful, and she took good care of her appearance. She worked out regularly, and I supported her by paying for her breast implants and some facial procedures, including regular Botox shots, as beautiful as she is. My wife isn't very skilled in areas that don't relate to her strengths, like car repairs, household tasks, and financial matters. She excelled in finding the best dresses and where to get them, which made her happy. There were occasions when she became frustrated and irritable if things didn't go her way. But one thing is certain, she loves her kids deeply. After our 16th wedding anniversary, things didn't go very smoothly. The COVID-19 pandemic had a major impact on the global economy. My income decreased, and when income goes down, spending logically should too. But my wife had a different perspective. She was unhappy because she couldn't go shopping for new clothes or meet her friends during the pandemic. Once the pandemic was over, she returned to her usual habits, but her attitude seemed a bit changed. I knew I had to work hard to get things back on track, so some aspects of our home life had to take a back seat. My wife started using TikTok to pass the time at home, and surprisingly, she gained a significant fan following on the platform. Over time, my wife grew more distant from me. I tried to spend time with her, but she preferred making TikTok videos and sharing updates about her day. I watched her videos occasionally and I started to have concerns. Her videos became darker in tone, discussing freedom and women's oppression. In one video, she praised Mia Khalifa for her ability to collect wedding rings and keep Tom Brady on his toes, which raised more worries for me. I had a conversation with Kathy that I'll never forget. She asked for a divorce and I was shocked. It felt like all those years of love and togetherness were falling apart. I asked her why she wanted a divorce and she said she didn't feel loved and thought we shouldn't be together because we were incompatible. She mentioned that she didn't think we looked good as a couple anymore. I realized I hadn't had time to work out due to my demanding job, and I'm not particularly athletic. Over time, I had gained some weight. I never saw my wife as a trophy to be paraded, and I never imagined I'd be discarded just because I didn't look good next to her after 17 years of marriage. I cried all night and felt lost about what to do. I offered to get in better shape, but she declined and said that she needed to feel loved and wanted to explore the world. I warned her that she had never tried to do things on her own in years and that she might face challenges she wasn't prepared for. I told her that she should reconsider and understand that at the age of 47, the world outside the security of her home could be tough. Kathy didn't change her decision. I called my sons and told them about their mother's decision. They were also shocked and expressed their concerns for her well-being. We're worried because there have been several incidents where Kathy tried to do things on her own. For example, she once filled the car with vegetable oil instead of engine oil, which cost me thousands of dollars to get fixed. So you can see why we're so concerned about her. I tried my best to change Kathy's mind, but she had set her heart on the path to freedom and love. The thought of checking if she was cheating on me did cross my mind. But I chose not to investigate further because I knew it would only increase my pain. I sat down with my lawyer and asked them to prepare the divorce papers. Kathy and I never had a joint account, so most of my money was in a trust for my son's education and potential business ventures. I didn't have a substantial amount of money in my personal account. I paid Kathy a significant sum by selling our home, and she was fine with it. I've reached a point where I've decided not to waste any more time with Kathy. I've come to understand that my intense desire to make her happy may have played a role in her decision to leave, and I'm ready to focus on the next chapter of my life. Kathy and I got divorced the day we met at the court. I asked her one last time if she understood the consequences of her actions. She replied that she was there for her freedom and would soon be soaring high in the sky. After our divorce, Kathy moved to a new apartment that she leased while I continued with my life, and eventually bought a small apartment. A few days later, one of my colleagues, Maria, asked me out for dinner, and I agreed. Over the next few weeks, we started dating. Maria was an intelligent and good-looking woman. Meanwhile, Kathy continued with her video content. One day, I stumbled upon a video where Kathy was explaining why she got divorced. She mentioned that she didn't feel loved, and after 17 years of marriage, she wanted to explore and find love. Many of her followers cheered and left approving comments. When I checked these followers, I noticed that most of them were middle-aged women. It seems that like-minded people tend to come together. I had a feeling that Kathy would soon come to understand what it means to be single, and I didn't have to wait long for it to happen. In one of her videos, she expressed her concerns about managing daily tasks like taking out the garbage, changing a light bulb, and ensuring her car was serviced on time. In her next video, she explained that she was now looking for a date and even shared her Tinder profile and asked people to write swiper. She mentioned that she would choose who would be lucky enough to date her. I was disgusted and didn't expect her to go to such lengths. A week later, there was another video where she was explaining why her new boyfriend is now her ex-boyfriend. She explained that her ex-boyfriend was interested in only getting in her pants. She was giggling, and it seems that even though she got pumped and dumped, she did not find that disgusting. The very thought that the mother of my kids is now being pumped by Tinder Sims in just a few days. She returned with another video stating that men were only interested in one-night stands with her. She also laughed about her experiences with 2 or 3 nightstands. It seemed like her standards were falling rapidly, akin to the fall of Enron stocks. On the other hand, my relationship with Maria was going strong. We planned a trip for Memorial Day with my 2 sons and went out as a family. I didn't inform Kathy because I felt that she no longer deserved to be with us. My sons posted some of our pictures together on Instagram, and Kathy saw them. It seems she didn't like what she saw. Her comment on the pictures saying, "I gave birth to you and always remember," that didn't sit well with her kids. My younger son disliked her comments and removed them. A day later, she went on a rant on TikTok, expressing how she didn't feel loved and how she hadn't been given the opportunity to work outside her home. She even mentioned that she felt like a prisoner in her own home and how she felt oppressed after her kids were born, having to take care of them full-time. She continued by saying how I had accumulated a lot of money and hadn't shared it with her. She mentioned that she felt nearly broke and believed she had been betrayed in the divorce. She cried and talked about spending Memorial Day alone, watching other people with their families. I guess Chad and Tyrone were busy with their families and left Kathy alone. Yes, I made a lot of money and I worked hard for it. I earned the money for the sake of my kids and my ex-wife. Kathy chose to leave behind a life of luxury and paid the price, even though she had been warned about the consequences. In her next video, I saw that she had a black eye. She said that she was assaulted because her Tinder date was not well behaved. This happened at a bar when he got drunk and angry after she asked him to drink less. The police arrested her Tinder date. She said she'd stop online dating and only date people she meets at local shopping centers, hoping to find gentlemen who would ask her out. I had doubts about a gentleman approaching a 47-year-old woman for a date, but Sims would surely approach her only for a pump and dump session. I've proposed to Maria and we're getting married. My sons approve and are happy for me. I've kept Kathy unaware of it because I didn't want to interact with her. Now she's nothing more than a cheap source of entertainment for me. A few days later, I saw Kathy dance on TikTok in her undergarments, and I guess a lot of people had a treat. A day later, one of my colleagues asked me if my ex-wife, okay, and if she has any mental issues. I got angry and told him to connect with Kathy. I did not understand why he is asking me that. I had missed a video from Kathy where she was crying and saying she wished that she had stayed in her marriage and not divorced me. She said that she misses her gentleman husband and her dear sons. She added that after getting divorced, she has not got any love and men only were with her for cheap thrills and one-night stands. There was number love, and she is now miserable. She's thinking about returning to her home with her family. She knows that her husband will surely forgive her and take her back. Well, Kathy, that boat has sailed and now has new sailors. You made your bed outside the safety of your home. Now better sleep in it. I warned you. I reminded you and pleaded with you. But you were adamant and hell-bent on searching for your so-called love and freedom. Your disillusion made you crazy. Your so-called followers made you feel like you made a great choice when you were gone. I got a great partner and found real love. You, on the other hand, were just adding to your body count. All the best. And I hope you don't even dream of coming back to me. I am an investment expert, not a junkyard dog. I got married in a private ceremony with only my sons and some very close family members and friends. Kathy somehow got to know about my marriage and barged into the middle of my marriage. And it was almost a mayhem. She started screaming and was almost about to destroy the wedding cake. She was stopped by my sons, and their security escorted her out of that venue. She waited outside the venue, and when I came out, she started hurling abuses that I deceived her and abandoned her. She blamed me for her misery and broke down crying. She got up again and was about to throw a stone on Maria when my younger son caught her hand and stopped her. My elder son called the cops and she was arrested. I almost burst out laughing when I overheard someone talking about Kathy's actions at my marriage and described her as a level 47 Karen. We later got a restraining order against her, and I hope that will keep her away from us. It has been 6 months and I'm on vacation with Maria in Paris. Life is good. Oh yes, I still see Kathy on TikTok and I still enjoy her crazy rants. Story 2. At 13, my abusive dad kicked me out into the January cold half-naked saying, "You don't deserve to live," after believing my golden brother lies about me. Years later, karma hit them hard. Sup Reddit. My golden brother framed me at 13, watched me get beaten and kicked out into the snow, then went on with his perfect life. 13 years later, one desperate text from him was all I needed to burn it all down. I, 26 male. And although everything went down in my life at the age of 13, this had been my life since I could remember. My parents had me when they were 36. The accident doesn't even cover it. More like a biological middle finger from the universe. They already had 2 kids when I showed up, and neither of them wanted to start over with diapers and daycare. My brother Garrett was 4 years older than me. Golden child. Could do no wrong in dad's eyes. Played varsity baseball, got decent grades, had the right friends. Dad went to every single one of his games, bought him whatever gear he wanted, talked about him like he was destined for greatness. My sister Kendra was 2 years older than me. She took after mom, always playing victim when it suited her. She'd break something and blame me, steal money from mom's purse and say I did it, start fights and cry when dad came home so I'd get hit instead of her. Mom never stopped any of it. She was too busy making everything about her. If dad hit me, she'd cry about how stressful the house was and how nobody appreciated how hard she worked. If I complained about Kendra, she'd sigh and ask why I always caused problems. She had this way of turning herself into the victim of every situation, even ones that had nothing to do with her. The worst part? I never knew what would set dad off. Could be anything. One time I got a B on a math test, and he threw the paper at me, told me I was stupid. Another time I accidentally broke a glass washing dishes, and he made me stand outside in the cold for an hour. No coat, no shoes, just standing on the back porch while he watched TV like nothing was happening. My siblings just ignored it. I was just background noise in their perfect little lives. I had one person who gave a damn. Dad's father. My grandpa. Pop, I called him. He lived about 30 minutes away and came around maybe once a month. He'd see the marks on my arms. The way I flinched when someone moved too fast. How quiet I was compared to Garrett and Kendra. He never said anything directly, but I could tell he knew. He'd always make a point of talking to me, asking about school, bringing me books or little things he picked up. He was the only decent one in the family. Mom hated when he visited. She'd get tense, put on this fake smile, act like everything was perfect. Dad would be on better behavior too, like they were both afraid Pop would call them out. They never did anything obvious when he was there. Then Garrett messed up. And instead of owning it, he threw me under the bus so hard I ended up in the snow with nowhere to go. Dad collected vintage baseball cards. Not just any cards, the expensive ones. He had this binder full of cards from the 60s and 70s, some worth hundreds of dollars each. His pride and joy. He kept them in a locked cabinet in his office and only took them out to look at them or show off to his buddies. Garrett knew the combination. Dad had given it to him a few months back. Some bonding thing about trust and responsibility. Garrett was the golden child, so obviously he could be trusted with Dad's most prized possession. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I got home from school and the house was quiet. Mom was at work. Kendra was at a friend's place. Dad wouldn't be back for another 2 hours. Garrett was supposed to be at baseball practice. I went to my room and started on homework. About an hour later, I heard Garrett's door open, heard him moving around, then heard the front door slam. Looked out my window and saw him driving off fast. Dad got home around 6. I heard him go straight to his office like he always did after work. Then I heard the cabinet open. Then silence. Then the worst sound in the world. "Where are my cards?" His voice wasn't loud. It was quiet. That cold, dangerous quiet that meant someone was about to get destroyed. I stayed in my room, door closed, pretending I didn't exist. "Garrett!" Dad's voice boomed through the house. Then louder. "Garrett! Get down here right now!" Garrett must have gotten back while I wasn't paying attention, because I heard his door open and his footsteps on the stairs. I pressed my ear against my door to hear. "Yeah, Dad? Where are my cards?" "What cards?" "Don't play stupid with me." "My 1967 set. 3 of them are missing from the binder." Silence. I could picture Garrett's face, that moment where he realized he was caught. Then I heard the words that changed everything. I didn't touch them. Must have been him. My stomach dropped. What? Dad's voice. Your youngest. He's always in your office snooping around. I saw him in there last week. I opened my door and came out. I didn't touch anything. Dad turned to look at me. His face was red, jaw clenched. You calling your brother a liar? I'm saying I didn't take anything. I don't even know the combination. Garrett jumped in real quick. Yeah, because you couldn't figure it out. You probably watched Dad open it. I didn't. Dad stepped toward me. Don't lie to me. I'm not lying. So you're saying Garrett is? I looked at Garrett. He stared back at me with this blank expression, not even pretending to care that he was framing me. Yeah, I said. He's lying. Garrett's expression changed. He stepped forward. Say that again. You're lying. You took the cards and now you're blaming me. Garrett shoved me. Hard. I stumbled back into the wall. Stop, Dad said, but not to Garrett. To me. Stop making this worse. Garrett shoved me again. I shoved him back. We went at it right there in the hallway, fists swinging, both of us crashing into walls. Dad pulled us apart after maybe 10 seconds, threw me down on the floor. Where are they? Dad's voice was ice. I don't know. I didn't take them. He grabbed me by my shirt and dragged me to my room. Started tearing through my stuff. Threw books off my shelf, dumped out my drawers, checked under the mattress. Found nothing because there was nothing to find. But that didn't matter. Garrett said I did it. And Dad believed Garrett over me every single time. Mom came home in the middle of the search. Saw the chaos. Saw me on the floor with Dad looming over me. What's happening? Your son stole my cards, Dad said. Mom looked at me, then at Dad, then sighed this big dramatic sigh like I just ruined her day. Why do you always do this to us? Not, are you okay, or let's figure this out? Just making herself the victim of me getting accused of something I didn't do. I didn't take anything. Then who did? Mom's voice was sharp. Garrett. Stop lying, Garrett said from the doorway. Kendra got home around that time. Dad called her into the room. Did you see your brother in my office? Kendra looked at Garrett, then at me, then back at Dad. You could see her doing the calculation. Side with the golden child or the family punching bag. Yeah, she said. Last week. I saw him coming out of there. She'd been staying at a friend's house that entire week. But that didn't matter. She was backing Garrett's story, probably hoping to stay in Dad's good graces. 2 against 1. Both of them lying. Both of them throwing me to the wolves. Dad grabbed me by the arm and pulled me up. His grip was tight enough to bruise. You're going to tell me where those cards are. I don't know because I didn't take them. He backhanded me across the face. Hard. My head snapped to the side, and I tasted blood. Mom made a little gasp, but didn't say anything. Garrett and Kendra just watched. Tell me. I didn't do it. He hit me again. Then again. I stopped trying to defend myself. Just took it. What was the point? When he finally stopped, I was on the floor with my face throbbing and my ears ringing. Dad stood over me, breathing hard. You cost me thousands of dollars, he said. Those cards were worth more than you'll ever be. Then he said the thing that made me snap. I wish we'd never had you. Something broke inside me. I looked up at him. You shouldn't have had me if you hate me this much. The room went dead silent. Even Garrett and Kendra looked shocked. Dad's face went from red to purple. What did you say? I said you shouldn't have had me. You've made it pretty clear I'm a mistake you've been trying to ignore for 13 years. So yeah, you shouldn't have had me. He grabbed me, dragged me to the front door, opened it. It was January. Snow on the ground, temperature in the 20s. I was in a t-shirt and shorts, no coat, no shoes. Might as well have been half naked in that weather. Get out. You, what? You don't even deserve to live. You are not my son. Dad! He shoved me outside and slammed the door. I heard the lock click. I stood there on the front porch for maybe 30 seconds, too stunned to move. Then I heard Dad's voice through the door, yelling at Mom about something. Nobody was coming to let me back in. The cold hit fast. Within a minute, I was shivering. I banged on the door. Dad! Dad! Come on! It's freezing. Nothing. I kept banging. Kept yelling. The neighbors had their lights on, but nobody came outside. They'd heard Dad yelling before. This was just another Tuesday night at our house. I gave up after 10 minutes. My fingers were going numb. I walked down the driveway in my socks, snow soaking through immediately. Made it to the gas station about half a mile away. This was back when gas stations still had payphones. The clerk gave me a weird look but didn't say anything when I used it. I called Pop. Hello? Pop, it's me. Hey kiddo. What's wrong? He could hear it in my voice. Dad kicked me out. I'm at the Shell station on Maple. Can you come get me? I'll be there in 25 minutes. Stay inside where it's warm. Pop showed up in 20 minutes. Took one look at me and his face went hard. What happened? I told him everything in the car. The cards, Garrett's lie, Kendra backing him up, Dad kicking me out. Pop didn't say much, just listened with his hands tight on the steering wheel. When we got to his house, he made me take a hot shower and gave me warm clothes. Then he called Dad. I couldn't hear Dad's side, but I heard Pop's. You kicked a 13-year-old out in the snow. I don't care what he supposedly did. He's staying with me. If you show up here, I'm calling the police and telling them everything. The hitting, the neglect, all of it. Try me. He hung up, looked at me. You're staying here. Permanently. What about? I'll handle it. Your mom will sign whatever I need her to sign. She won't want cops asking questions about how her son ended up sick from exposure. Plus, I know a family lawyer who owes me a favor. We'll file for emergency custody first, then permanent guardianship. With the documented abuse and what just happened, they won't fight it. Trust me. I didn't understand what he meant until the next day when I woke up with a fever. Turned out standing in the snow for 10 minutes, then walking half a mile in wet socks, does bad things to your body. Pop took me to the doctor. I had a nasty cold and some mild exposure symptoms, but the doctor said it could have been way worse. Pop was pissed when he heard that. I spent 2 weeks in bed feeling like death. Pop took care of me the whole time. Brought me soup, made sure I took medicine, sat with me when the fever made me delirious. Mom came by once. Stood in the doorway looking uncomfortable while Pop glared at her. She signed some papers, asked if I was okay in this flat voice like she was reading from a script, then left. I never went back to that house. Living with Pop was different. Quiet. Nobody hit me. Nobody made me feel like I was a mistake. He didn't have much money, lived in a small 2-bedroom house on the edge of town, but it was stable. The first few months were weird. I kept expecting something bad to happen. Kept waiting for Pop to get tired of me and send me back. It took a while to understand he actually wanted me there. School was easier without the constant stress of home. My grades went from decent to good to excellent. Turns out when you're not living in survival mode, learning comes pretty easy. By freshman year of high school, I was pulling straight A's without even trying that hard. I worked too. Started washing dishes at a diner when I was 14. Lied about my age. Told them I was 16. They didn't ask questions. The manager liked me. Said I was reliable. Showed up on time. Didn't complain. Within 2 years, I was working the line during busy shifts. The money wasn't great, but it added up. Dad never reached out. No one did. Sophomore year, I joined the robotics club. Wasn't planning to, but my physics teacher kept bugging me about it. Said I had the right kind of brain for it. Figured why not? Turned out I loved it. Loved building things, solving problems, working with my hands. Our team made it to state championships that year. We didn't win, but we placed top 10, which was huge for our school. Junior year, I went all in on scholarship applications. Every single one I could find. Spent hours writing essays, filling out applications, getting recommendations. The responses started coming in spring. I got a few small ones. Then in April, I got the big one. Full ride to State University for engineering. Tuition, room, board, everything covered. I showed Pop the letter. He read it twice, then pulled me into a hug. Proud of you, kiddo. I graduated third in my class. Pop came to the ceremony. Sat in the front row, clapped louder than anyone when they called my name. My family didn't show. Didn't expect them to. College was a different world. Suddenly, I was surrounded by people who actually wanted to be there, who cared about learning, who had goals. I threw myself into mechanical engineering. The coursework was brutal, but I'd been preparing for brutal my whole life. I also kept working. Got a job in the university machine shop, spent summer breaks doing 12-hour shifts at a manufacturing plant. Miserable work, but the money was good. I was obsessed with building a financial cushion. Never wanted to be dependent on anyone again. Never wanted to be one bad break away from ending up back at that house. Graduated at 22 with a degree, 0 debt, and a solid chunk of savings. Got hired immediately by an aerospace company. Starting salary was $65,000. To a kid who grew up getting beat and sleeping in a closet-sized room, that was life-changing money. I moved to a different city for the job. Rented a decent apartment. Bought a used car with cash. Kept living like I was broke even though I wasn't anymore. For 3 years, I lived on maybe 40% of my income. Saved and invested the rest aggressively. At 25, I had enough for a down payment on a house. Found one in a quiet neighborhood. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, decent yard. Needed some work, but nothing major. I put down a huge chunk, kept the mortgage payment lower than my old rent. The house was mine. Spent the first month fixing it up. Painted walls, updated fixtures, fixed the fence in the backyard, made it look like an actual home instead of a rundown investment property. Then I called Pop. Hey, kiddo, how's the new place? Good. Listen, I've got 3 bedrooms here and I'm only using one. You should move in. Silence on the other end. Then, you sure? Yeah. You took me in when I had nothing. This is me paying that forward. Plus, your house is falling apart and you're too stubborn to admit it. He laughed. Fair enough. Pop moved in 2 weeks later. We converted one of the bedrooms into his space, set him up with everything he needed. He tried to pay rent. I refused. Tried to cover utilities. I refused that too. You already paid, I told him. When you picked me up from that gas station and gave me a chance. We're even. We fell into an easy routine. I'd work during the day. He'd do light maintenance on the house and run errands. We'd have dinner together most nights. Nothing fancy, just normal meals and conversation. First time in my life I actually felt like I had a family. This went on for about a year. Best year of my life. Stable job, solid income, my own house, and the one person who'd ever given a damn living comfortably under my roof. Then Dad showed up. I got home from work on a Thursday and saw a car I didn't recognize in my driveway. Older sedan, kind of beat up. Had that feeling in my gut immediately, like trouble was coming. Pop was standing on the front porch looking tense. When I got closer, I saw why. Dad was there. He looked older. More gray hair, deeper lines on his face. Still had that same hard expression, though. That look that used to make me flinch when I was 13. Later, I'd find out he'd been sniffing around town asking questions. Got my address from public records. Property ownership's not hard to find if you know someone's name. Not anymore. Can I help you? I kept my voice flat. He looked me up and down like he was sizing up livestock. So you did all right for yourself. Nice house. What do you want? I came to check out my new place. I almost laughed. Your what? This house. I'm moving in. Lost my apartment last month and I need somewhere to stay. You've got the space and I'm your father. It's your responsibility to take care of me. You're not moving in. Don't be difficult. This house is too nice for just you anyway. You probably can't even afford it on your own. I'll help with expenses once I find work. I own this house and you're not stepping foot inside it. He waved that off like I was being dramatic. You wouldn't even know how to be successful if I hadn't raised you right. Everything you have is because I taught you discipline. The least you can do is give me a room. Pop made a noise that might have been a laugh or a cough. I just stared. Don't be selfish. I'm your father. You owe me that much. I don't owe you anything. His face hardened. Watch your tone. I don't care how old you are. You don't talk to me like that. Then leave my property before I make you leave. He stepped closer. Old habit, trying to intimidate me with his size. You think you're tough now? You're still that scared little kid who couldn't even look me in the eye. No. I'm the adult you made when you beat me for 13 years and threw me out in the snow. And I'm telling you to get off my porch, or I'll handle it the way you understand it. You wouldn't have anything if it wasn't for me raising you? He raised his voice. That actually made me laugh. Raising me? You beat me and threw me out when I was 13. Because you destroyed my baseball cards. $6,000 worth of collectibles. You cost me everything and now you owe me. You're living in this nice house because of the discipline I taught you. Time to pay back what you took from me. I didn't touch your cards. Garrett stole them. That's what you said then, and it was garbage then too. Always lying to get out of trouble. Well, now you're going to make it right. I'm moving in, and you're going to cover my expenses until I'm back on my feet. It's the least you can do after what you put me through. And I'm not offering. This conversation is over. Leave. You don't get to tell me what to do. Actually, I do. It's called property rights. This is my house. You're trespassing. Leave now, or I'm calling the police. He laughed. Mean and sharp. The police? For what? Trespassing. Harassment. I can file assault charges from when I was a kid if you want to make this interesting. Pop kept records. Didn't you, Pop? Pop nodded. Hospital visits. Photos of bruises. Dates and times. All of it. Dad's expression shifted. Not scared, but calculating. He was realizing this wasn't the helpless 13-year-old he remembered. You're making a mistake, he said. Family is supposed to help each other. You stopped being family when you kicked me out for something I didn't do. Now you're a stranger on my porch who won't leave. I'm going inside to get my phone. If you're still here when I come back, I'm dialing 911. Your choice. I turned and walked to the door. Heard him start to say something, but Pop cut him off. You heard him. Go. I went inside, grabbed my phone, came back out. He was still there, but he'd backed up a few steps. His car door was open. You're going to regret this, he said. No, I really won't. Here's how this goes. You leave now. You don't come back. You don't call. You don't show up at my work. If I see you anywhere near my property again, I'm filing a restraining order and pressing every charge I can think of. Pop's got enough documentation to make your life very difficult. Am I clear? His jaw was tight, hands in fists. For a second, I thought he might actually try something. Then he got in his car. This isn't over. Yeah, it is. If I see you again, you're going to jail. That's a promise. He drove off. Tires squealed a little. Real mature. Pop and I stood there for a minute watching the street. You think he'll come back? Pop asked. Maybe. Doesn't matter. If he does, I'll follow through. I'm done with him. He wasn't getting this house. He wasn't getting anything from me ever again. I didn't hear from him for 2 weeks. Then Garrett texted me. First message in 13 years. Hey, can we talk? About what? About everything. I messed up back then. I want to apologize for real. You already tried that once. I didn't care then either. I know. But things are different now. Dad's been on my case constantly. I'm trying to fix things with the family. Not my problem. Come on, man. We're brothers. That almost made me laugh. We've never been brothers. You threw me under the bus to save yourself and watched me get beat for it. Then you went on with your life while I got kicked out in the snow. Whatever you need, figure it out yourself. I put my phone down. Figured that was the end of it. But Garrett kept texting. Over the next few days, he sent a dozen messages. Some apologetic, some trying to guilt trip me, some just rambling about how hard things were for him. I ignored all of them. Then he sent one that caught my attention. Dad's losing it. I think he's going to do something crazy. I stared at that message for a minute. Part of me didn't care, but another part saw an opportunity. I thought about it for a bit. Garrett was scared. Dad was unstable. And somewhere in all that chaos, Garrett was probably worried the truth might come out. Time to push that button. Yeah, Pop mentioned something about that, I texted back. Said Dad's been telling people he thinks he was lied to back then. About the cards. I hit send and waited. The 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Disappeared. Appeared again. Garrett was typing and deleting. Finally, what do you mean? Pop ran into one of Dad's old friends at the hardware store. Guy said Dad's been going on and on about how his kids screwed him over. How someone lied to him about something important and he's been thinking about it for years. More typing. More deleting. That's just Dad being Dad. Maybe. Pop seemed to think it was serious, though. Said Dad kept mentioning the cards, kept saying he needed to figure out what really happened. I could picture Garrett's face right now. That panicked calculation he always did when things weren't going his way. Look, he texted, I need to tell you something. Go ahead. The dots appeared and disappeared for a solid 2 minutes. When the message finally came through, it was long. Okay, look, I need to be straight with you because Dad's spiraling and I need backup here. Remember those cards? Yeah, that was me. I took them to sell because I needed cash for something. Sold 2 of them, but the 67 mantle got damaged in my car before I could move it. I panicked and blamed you because Dad was already on the warpath, and you know how he gets. I read it once, then again, screenshot it immediately, sent it to my email, backed it up to cloud storage. Garrett was still typing. But here's the thing. Dad's been a psycho about this for years. Like legitimately obsessed. He brings it up whenever he's mad about anything. My son destroyed my cards. My life went downhill after that. Like, dude, they were just baseball cards. He's used that story as the reason for why everything in his life sucked. He acts like you burned down his house. And now he's apparently telling people he was lied to? The man's unhinged. Another message came through. I'm not saying what I did was right, but we both know Dad made everything worse than it needed to be. He's the one who beat you over some cardboard. He's the one who kicked a kid out in the snow. I made a mistake, but he's the problem here. And if he's really digging into this now, I need you to have my back. We can tell him together. Make him understand it was just a dumb kid mistake, and he needs to let it go. You know how he gets when it's just one person. But if we both talk to him, maybe he'll actually listen for once. One more message. Can you help me out here? I'm serious about making this right, but I can't deal with Dad alone. You've always been smarter about handling him anyway. I sat there looking at my phone. After all these years, he just handed it to me. Confessed in writing because he thought I'd help him manage Dad. Thought he could trash Dad, rewrite what happened, and get me to be his shield. Even better, he'd admitted to stealing the cards to sell them. Not an accident. Theft. And he still somehow made himself the victim in the story. This was almost too easy. Yeah, I texted back. I'll help. Garrett sent back a relieved message. Thank you, man. Seriously. I knew you'd understand. Dad's always been the real problem and we both know it. When do you want to talk to him? I didn't respond. Just opened a new text to Dad. Then I put my phone away and went to work. 2 hours later, Garrett sent another message. You still there? Then, so when do you want to meet up to talk to Dad? I'm thinking we should do it somewhere public so he can't blow up. Then, hey, seriously, I need to know the plan here. He sent 6 more messages over the next hour, getting more agitated each time, asking why I wasn't responding, saying he thought we were going to handle this together, saying he'd trusted me with the truth. You sent it to him, didn't you? You piece of garbage, I asked you for help. I trusted you, and you just sold me out. Do you have any idea what you just did to me? I almost laughed at that last one. He trusted me the same way I trusted him when I was 13, and he threw me under the bus. Funny how that works. I didn't check my phone until lunch. When I did, I had 23 missed calls. 12 from Garrett, 8 from Kendra, 3 from Mom. I listened to one voicemail from Garrett. He was yelling, panicking, begging me to tell Dad I was lying, or that I'd faked the screenshot somehow. Said Dad had beaten him so bad he could barely stand. Said Dad kicked him out and told him to never come back. 2 days later, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Family meeting, tonight, 7 p.m. Your mother's house. Be there. It was Dad. 10 minutes later, another text. This is not optional. I pulled up to Mom's house. Dad's truck was in the driveway. Garrett's car. Kendra's. I walked in without knocking. The whole family was in the living room. Mom on the couch looking nervous. Kendra next to her. Garrett in the armchair trying to look casual. And Dad, standing in the middle of the room with his laptop open on the coffee table. Everyone turned when I walked in. Garrett's face went white. What's he doing here? Dad looked at me. Something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Sit down. I stayed standing near the door, arms crossed. Mom started to say something, but Dad cut her off. Everyone shut up and listen. The room went silent. Dad showed Garrett's confession text on the screen. Garrett, Dad said, voice calm. Too calm. Want to explain this? Garrett shifted in his seat. Dad, I already told you he's lying. He faked that somehow. Stop. Garrett stopped. I made you show me the thread on your phone. Same number, same timestamps. No way out. Dad's jaw tightened. You sent this. You confessed. You lied to me for 13 years. The room was dead quiet. Kendra was staring at the floor. Mom had her hand over her mouth. Garrett tried again. I was scared, okay? I was a kid and I panicked and you were 17. Old enough to know better. Old enough to let your brother get beaten and thrown out for something you did. It was a mistake. You made a choice. Dad's voice was getting louder now. Every single day for 13 years, you made the choice to stay quiet. You went to college on my dime, got your car, got your apartment, all while he, Dad pointed at me, was working doubles at a diner and sleeping in his grandpa's spare room. Garrett looked at me, then back at Dad. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I was wrong. I should have. The slap was so fast I almost missed it. Dad's hand across Garrett's face. The sound of it echoed in the room like a gunshot. Garrett's head snapped to the side. He grabbed his face, stared at Dad in shock. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Dad stood over him. You watched me throw out the wrong kid and let it happen. Garrett's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Dad turned to Kendra. And you knew, the whole time. Kendra's eyes went wide. Dad, don't you dare. His hand was shaking, not from fear, from rage barely held back. You backed his story. And then you sat at my table for 13 years pretending you didn't. Kendra started crying. I was scared. Of what? Telling the truth? Mom tried to stand up. Please, let's just sit down. Mom sat. Dad looked around the room. At Garrett holding his face, at Kendra crying, at Mom frozen on the couch. Then he looked at me. I'm sorry, he said. I'm sorry for not believing you. I'm sorry for what I did. I'm sorry for 13 years of thinking you were the problem when it was me. His voice cracked. I threw out the wrong kid. I didn't say anything. Just stood there. Dad turned back to Garrett and Kendra. You're both out. I'm rewriting my will first thing tomorrow. Out of my house, out of my life. You want to rebuild from nothing like he did? Go ahead. See how it feels. Garrett stood up. Dad, please. Get out. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. Garrett looked at me. Like I was supposed to save him. Like I owed him something. I stared back. Said nothing. He grabbed his jacket and walked out. Slammed the door behind him. Kendra was still crying on the couch. Daddy, please. You too. Out. She looked at Mom. Mom wouldn't look at her. Kendra got up and left. Door closed quieter this time. The room was silent except for Mom's quiet sobbing. Dad looked at me again. Can we talk? No. I know I don't deserve. You don't. You're right about that. I'm trying to make this right. You can't. What's done is done. You made your choice 13 years ago. This? I gestured around the room. This is just you dealing with the consequences. What can I do? Nothing. There's nothing you can do. I don't need your apology. I don't need your money. I don't need anything from you. I headed for the door. Enjoy your clean house. I walked out, got in my car, drove home. Pop was waiting up. How'd it go? Dad slapped Garrett in front of everyone. Cut them both out of his will. Kicked them out. Pop nodded slowly. Good. He stood up, stretched. Want some tea? Yeah, sure. Garrett showed up 2 days after that. I saw him from the window. He looked rough. Unshaven, wrinkled clothes, like he'd been sleeping in his car. He had a duffel bag with him. He knocked on the door. I didn't answer. He knocked again. I know you're in there. Just let me in. We need to talk. Pop came out from the kitchen. Saw Garrett through the window. Want me to handle it? No. I got this. I opened the door but left the security chain on. What? I need a place to stay. No. Come on, man. I'm your brother. You're the guy who ruined my childhood to save himself. That's it. I apologized. You confessed. That's not the same thing. I have nowhere else to go. That's your situation. I shut the door in his face, locked it, walked away. He pounded on the door for maybe 5 minutes, yelling about family and second chances and how I was heartless. Then his voice faded and I heard his car start up. Pop was watching from the kitchen doorway. Feel bad? No. He went back to the kitchen. Conversation over. The next week was a spam flood from all three of them. Same guilt, different fonts. Kendra tried one more time about a month later. Showed up at my work somehow. Waited in the parking lot until my shift ended. I saw her leaning against her car. She'd lost weight, looked stressed, probably struggling now that Dad had cut her off, and she actually had to support herself. I have a deal for you, she said, when I walked past her. I kept walking. Just hear me out. Dad wants to talk. He'll help with, I don't know, whatever you need. Down payment on a bigger place, new truck, whatever. Just sit down with him once. I stopped, turned around. You're trying to broker a reconciliation so you can get back in the will. Her face went red. That's not... Yeah, it is. You think if I forgive him, he'll soften up and let you back in. That's the play. We're family. No. You were insurance. You watched what happened to me and stayed quiet because it was safer. Now you're scrambling because the safety's gone. I got in my car. Good luck with that. She was still standing there when I drove off. Blocked her number that night. 2 weeks later, an envelope showed up at my house. No return address. Mom's handwriting. Inside was a Thanksgiving photo. Mom at one end, Garrett and Kendra on either side. Dad wasn't in it. Guess he'd already bailed on their pity holiday. And an empty chair. My old spot. Dead center in the frame like a prop. On the back, we miss you. There's always a place for you here. I stared at it for 10 seconds. Then trashed it and went back to the garage. Pop looked up when I came in. What was that? Mom trying again? Work? No. Good. Haven't heard a word since. Dad rewrote the will. Garrett and Kendra got nothing. Mom still mails birthday cards I don't open. I'm here, in a house I bought with money I earned, eating dinner with Pop and building whatever I want in my garage. They had 13 years to be family. They passed. Now they get the version of me that doesn't care. Pop glanced over his book. You good? Yeah, I'm good. And for once, I meant it. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks. Story 3. I moved cross-country and my parents ghosted me. When I started making good money, they texted, "Your brother needs money, we're on our way." They showed up having no idea what they were walking into. Sup Reddit. So I cut my family off after a lifetime of being ignored, and years later they showed up at my door like I owed them something. I, 32 male, was standing in my parents' living room last August, holding a $14 craft drink nobody gave a damn about. Tiger's game blasting at max volume because Dad's hearing was shot, but he refused to admit it. My brother Trevor was in the corner filming another TikTok about his entrepreneur grind. Drop shipping Alibaba garbage at 400% markup to idiots who didn't know better. I'd just landed the biggest promotion of my career. Senior network architect, Fortune 100 cybersecurity firm, remote position, $180,000 base plus equity, moving to Austin. They're promoting me to senior architect, I said loud enough to cut through the TV noise. Moving me to Texas, $180,000 base. Nobody looked up. Not dad, welded to his recliner. Not mom, scrolling Facebook, probably heart-reacting Trevor's latest hustle post. Not Trevor, adjusting his ring light for optimal, authentic struggle lighting. I took a long pull from my drink, same one I'd been having for 5 years that they'd never once acknowledged, and felt something click in my chest. They didn't give a damn. I learned early I was the spare tire. The kid who existed to make Trevor look better. At 9, they threw my birthday party in the garage. Trevor needed the house for his YouTube setup, skateboard tricks for 47 subscribers. I ate grocery store cake surrounded by power tools. Mom poked her head in. Be patient, honey. Trevor's building his brand. Got it. I didn't matter as much. At 13, I placed second in the state math competition. 6 months of prep. 2 buses to get there because mom and dad were watching Trevor film for his 83 subscriber channel. Brought home a trophy, medal, and certificate signed by the governor. Dad walked in on his phone talking to Trevor about lighting. Cool, bud. Didn't even look. Trevor needs help with this rig. His channel's about to blow up. Got a sponsor interested. For 83 subscribers. That was the dream. Dad, Later, Evan. Trevor's building something real. Trophy sat on the kitchen table for a week. Nobody asked about it. I moved it to my room myself. I became the family fix-it guy. Router, laptop, Trevor's entire dropshipping site. 3 weeks of coding while he partied. He thanked me with a fist bump and posted on Instagram about grinding alone. No handouts, just pure hustle. The site I built. For free. Thanksgiving, Trevor showed up 4 hours late. Instagram livestream ran long. We waited. Watched the turkey turn to leather. He walked in wearing designer everything. Mom practically tackled him. Sweetheart, you work so hard. Sit down. Evan, fix your brother a plate. I was already seated. Already hungry. Already exhausted from helping Dad smoke that turkey. Since 4 a.m. Stood up. Made his plate. Gave him the breast meat. Took the dry wings nobody wanted. Mom packed him the best leftovers. Handed me scraps in margarine containers. He's got a son to feed. You're single. You don't need as much. I nodded. Something inside me was breaking. When I landed the architect role, I booked Giorgio's, the expensive Italian place. Invited everyone 3 weeks ahead. Confirmed twice. They came. But it wasn't about me. Mom pulled out her phone before I finished my appetizer. Helped Trevor research commercial kitchen spaces. Talked over me mid-sentence while I explained classified government contracts, infrastructure stuff, real work. They kept talking about square footage for Trevor's meal prep scheme. Dad asked for the check before entrees arrived. Not missing the Lions game for overpriced pasta. 35 minutes. That's all I got. Paid the $340 bill. Left 30% because the waiter looked embarrassed for me. After that, I buried myself in work. Cybersecurity architecture? Remote work meant I could be anywhere. The day I accepted the Austin offer, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Control. Then came that Saturday in August. Michigan heat. House smelling like old carpet and desperation. Mom chasing Trevor's kid while Trevor filmed another entrepreneur TikTok. Dad half watching baseball. I opened my drink and said it clearly. They promoted me to senior architect. Moving to Austin. $180,000 base plus equity. The TV announcer screamed about a strikeout. Nobody looked up. I stood there, condensation dripping onto my hand. For the first time, I didn't feel hurt. I felt clear. I could leave, and this house would sound exactly the same. That felt like a green light. 5 weeks later, my life was packed into a 16-footer. Turns out you don't accumulate much when you're invisible. Night before I left, I dropped a message in the family group chat. Leaving tomorrow morning. New job starts Monday. Austin bound. Red receipts showed they'd seen it. Mom, Dad, Trevor. By morning, nothing. I pulled out at 5:15 a.m., loaded the truck myself. Dad's back was acting up. Mom had errands. Trevor didn't even acknowledge my text about the furniture I was leaving behind. Halfway through Tennessee, Mom's text came through. We need you home this weekend. Trevor's moving inventory to a new warehouse. Heavy lifting. Like I'd driven to Home Depot instead of moving 1,200 miles away. I deleted it. Blocked the family group chat. Kept driving. My apartment was downtown Austin. 23rd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows. 2 bedrooms. Central air that didn't sound like a dying helicopter. $2,100 a month. Mine. First night I sat on the floor eating pizza from the box, watching the city lights flicker on. Nobody called asking for the router password. Nobody texted needing help moving furniture. Silence never sounded so good. The next few months fell into a rhythm. Morning runs along Lady Bird Lake. Work from home with colleagues who valued competence over family obligation. My team protected networks handling billions in assets, hospitals, power grids, banking systems, actual important work. Then I found Zuko, massive Belgian Malinois mix, 95 pounds of muscle and loyalty, shaking in a shelter kennel. The volunteer said he'd been returned 3 times. Too intense, too protective, too much dog. I knew that feeling. Took him home that afternoon. That's how I met Marissa. Dog park on a Wednesday evening. Her Doberman, Zeus, and Zuko started playing. That rough, growling, totally friendly but looks violent kind of play. Your dog's a beast, she laughed. That's what's up. Athletic, confident, zero makeup. The kind of woman who knew her worth and didn't negotiate it. She ran operations for a startup. Logistics, supply chain, the unglamorous stuff that actually makes companies function. We started meeting up after work. Dogs became inseparable. Slowly, so did we. With Marissa, I could talk about work without feeling like I was bragging. She listened, retained information, asked follow-up questions days later. How'd that penetration test go? She'd text on random Thursdays. She remembered. Holy heck. Then the ghosts found my address. Sunday morning text, family BBQ Saturday. Dad's turning 62. Show up early to set up tables and chairs. No question mark. No, we miss you. Just expectation. I showed Marissa. You gonna go? Heck no. Good. They don't deserve your time. Next day, the chat exploded. Missed calls, guilt texts, even Trevor. Dad's upset you bailed. Not cool, man. This from the guy who missed my college graduation for a pop-up shop that made $200. 3 years burned past. More promotions, hit $210,000. New friends who actually gave a damn. My apartment became home. Zuko claimed his spot on the couch. Marissa's running shoes lived by my door. I thought the past had finally stopped looking for me. Then my cousin Tanner crashed on my couch for 2 nights. Last morning, light hitting my place perfectly. Exposed brick, leather furniture, mounted TV, weight setup. Zuko sprawled on his dog bed. Tanner pulled out his phone. Dude, this setup is sick. Can I post it? Go ahead. He snapped the photo, added a caption. At my cousin Evan's spot in Austin. Man built something worth respecting. Posted it to Instagram. I barely looked at it. Didn't realize that single post, 412 likes in 3 hours, would blow up every boundary I'd built. By next morning, my phone was drowning in notifications from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. People asking what I was making now. Others wanting to know if I bought or rented. That furniture looks expensive. Cousins I barely knew commenting with fire emojis and killing it. Then mom commented, so proud of our Evan. Always knew he'd succeed. We raised him to be independent and driven. Our. That word tasted like gasoline. Where was our during the math competition? The promotion dinner? The move? Our showed up when there was something to photograph. First text came Thursday night, 11:47 p.m. Evan, honey, we've been so worried about you. Can we talk? Mom. 3 years of near silence and suddenly she was worried. Tanner's post had been live for 72 hours. Had 500 plus likes now, which in my family's world was viral. Before I could respond, second text. Trevor showed me photos of your apartment. Very impressive. You must be doing extremely well financially. There it was. The real conversation. By morning, 6 missed calls from mom, 3 from dad, 2 from Trevor. Dad's voicemail was literally 8 seconds. Call your mother back. Family business. I didn't call back until Saturday afternoon. Let them stew. When mom answered, her voice had that forced cheerfulness. Oh, sweetheart, finally. We were thinking about visiting. No, I said simply. Silence. She wasn't expecting that. Excuse me? I said no. You're not visiting. I moved 1,200 miles away for a reason. You want to talk? We can do it over the phone. Evan, we're your family. Family that ignored me for 3 years until Tanner posted my apartment online. So no, you're not coming to Austin. We already booked the flights, she said, voice going cold. Saturday morning, all 4 of us. My jaw clenched. Then cancel them. I'm not hosting you. It's non-refundable, she said, like that was my problem. We'll be there at 11. We can talk then. Mom, I'm telling you right now. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, rage building. She'd booked flights without asking. And now she was acting like my refusal didn't matter. Marissa looked up from her laptop. What happened? They booked flights to Austin. I told them not to come. She hung up on me. So don't let them in, she said simply. That's the plan. But I knew my family. They didn't take no for an answer. They'd show up anyway and make a scene until I caved. Not this time. Saturday came. I was ready. Doorbell rang at 11:20 a.m. Late, even when forcing themselves on me. I looked through the peephole. All four of them. Mom holding a Starbucks bag like a peace offering. Dad with cheap sodas. Trevor with Hudson looking tired and confused. I opened the door but kept my body in the doorway, blocking entry. I told you not to come, I said flatly. Mom's smile faltered. We flew all this way without my permission. That's not my problem. Evan, we're family, Dad said, trying to push past me. I didn't budge. Family that ignored me for 3 years. You're not coming in. Trevor stepped forward, voice aggressive. Bro, we flew here. Stop being a jerk and let us in. Or what? I asked, voice cold. You'll force your way into my home? Mom's eyes went wide, playing victim. We just want to see you. You want something. And seeing me is the price of admission. I'm not interested. Hudson tugged on Trevor's sleeve, looking scared. The kid didn't deserve this, but I wasn't responsible for his parents' choices. Mom's voice cracked. Please, sweetheart. We came all this way. Just let us in for a few minutes. I looked at them, all of them, standing in my hallway with luggage, with expectations, with the same entitlement they'd always had. Part of me wanted to slam the door, but I knew they wouldn't leave. They'd camp out in the hallway, make a scene, bother my neighbors. Fine. They wanted in. They'd get exactly 2 hours. Then they were gone. 2 hours, I said. You get 2 hours. Then you leave. Understood? Mom brightened immediately. Of course, sweetie. I mean it. 2 hours. Not negotiable. I stepped aside. They practically rushed in, taking over my space like locusts. Mom swept past wearing too much perfume, already scanning my apartment like an appraiser, running her fingers over my furniture, checking price tags in her mind. Oh, sweetheart, look at you, she said, but her eyes were calculating square footage and rental costs. This is lovely, very upscale. What's the rent on a place like this? Translation. How much money do you have? Dad followed with cheap sodas, the cheapest stuff possible. I'd been drinking quality drinks for years. He'd never once remembered. Brought drinks for the game, he said, already looking for my TV. Treating my home like his personal sports bar. Trevor came in last, phone out, definitely taking video for his Instagram story. Yo, nice place. What's the square footage? Like 1,400? Downtown Austin, this has to be $2,600 a month minimum. Or did you buy? Because if you bought, don't. I cut him off, voice sharp. You're here for 2 hours. Don't spend it calculating my net worth. His smile faltered. Hudson immediately ran inside without being invited. Started touching everything. Grabbed at my TV remote, jumped on my couch. Zuko retreated to the bedroom, tail low. I checked my watch. Started the timer. We moved to the living room. Dad grabbed my TV remote without asking. Found the Tigers game. Cranked the volume. Nobody asked if I wanted to watch baseball. Mom settled onto my couch, my $3,200 leather sectional, and started the interrogation. So what's your salary now? You must be doing quite well to afford all this. Straight to it. No pretense. I'm comfortable, I said, jaw tight. Trevor laughed, that fake sound he made when fishing. Come on, man. You gotta be clearing $200,000 minimum. With equity? Maybe $250,000 total comp? He wasn't wrong, but I wasn't confirming anything. Why does it matter? I asked. Just curious, bro. Trying to understand the network architect game. Seems lucrative. It is, I said, when you actually finish your degree and work for it. Silence. Sharp. Uncomfortable. Mom forced a laugh. No need to be rude, honey. I'm not being rude. I'm being honest. Something this family struggles with. Trevor's face flushed. You know what? I came here thinking we could reconnect. You came here because Tanner posted my apartment, and you realized I have money. Let's not pretend this is about brotherhood. Hudson kept jumping on my furniture. I'd asked him twice to stop. He ignored me. Hudson, I said firmly. Last warning. Sit down or play quietly in the corner. Stop jumping on my furniture. Mom's face went tight. He's 7. He has energy. He can have energy without breaking my stuff. Don't talk that way around my son, Trevor snapped. Then control your son in my home, I shot back. The tension was thick. Mom looked offended that I wasn't playing the accommodating host. Dad kept his eyes on the TV like a coward. Trevor was scrolling his phone, probably posting about his toxic brother to his followers. 30 minutes in, I was already done with this. Mom kept pushing. Is Marissa paying half the rent? Are you two basically living together? That's none of your business. I'm just asking, sweetie. and I'm just not answering. Trevor looked up from his phone. Bro, you've changed. You used to be chill. I used to be a doormat, I corrected. I'm done with that. See? Trevor gestured at me. This attitude. This is what I'm talking about. You're acting like we're strangers. We are strangers, I said. You haven't texted me in 3 years. Don't know where I work. Don't know who I date. Don't know anything about my life. That's the definition of strangers. Mom flinched. That's not fair? It's accurate, I interrupted. You want to know what's not fair? Flying here uninvited after I explicitly told you not to come. That's not fair. Dad finally spoke, still facing the TV. We're your parents. We can visit our son. Not without permission, you can't. An hour in, the real conversation started. Mom shifted forward on the couch, hands folded. Practiced expression. Your father and I have been thinking about your brother's situation. Stop, I said. Whatever this is, no. You haven't even heard. Don't need to? The answer's no. Trevor set his phone down. Bro, just listen. I said no. I'm not funding your next failure. I'm not bailing out mom and dad's terrible decisions. I'm not your emergency fund. Mom's eyes widened. How dare you? How dare I what? Have boundaries? Refuse to enable your golden child? Actually expect to be treated like family instead of a checkbook? We raised you. No, I cut her off, voice cold. You raised Trevor. I raised myself. Big difference. Trevor stood up, angry now. You're really gonna sit there acting like you had it so hard? You got everything. Name one thing, I challenged. One thing they gave me that they didn't give you first. One time they put me first. One sacrifice they made for me. Silence. Complete damning silence. That's what I thought, I said. I checked my watch. Hour and 40 minutes. 20 minutes left. But I was done. Time's up, I said, standing. You need to leave. Evan, we haven't, Mom started. I don't care. You came here uninvited. I gave you 2 hours out of courtesy. Now you're leaving. We flew all this way. Your choice. Your problem. Not mine. I walked to the door, opened it. Out. Trevor grabbed Hudson, face red with rage and humiliation. You're really gonna do this? I really am. Doors open. Use it. Mom stood up, tears starting. That practiced emotional manipulation. After everything we've done for you? Like what? I asked. Specifically, name one thing. One sacrifice. She couldn't. Just stood there, mouth opening and closing. That's what I thought, I said. Leave. Dad finally stood, grabbing his jacket. You've become cruel. No, I said. I became honest. And you can't handle it. Trevor lingered at the door. We came here to ask for your help. I know, I said. That's why you came. That's the only reason you came. And that's exactly why the answer is no. Trevor's in trouble, Mom blurted out. Real trouble. He owes money. Not my problem, I said simply. He's an adult. He made choices. He can face consequences. He could lose everything. Good, I said. Maybe he'll learn something. Trevor's face went pale. You're really gonna let me fail? I'm gonna let you experience reality, I corrected. Something Mom and Dad never did. Consider it a gift. This is messed up. No, I cut him off. What's messed up is showing up uninvited, treating my home like an ATM, and expecting me to fund your delusions. What's messed up is 3 years of silence followed by demands for money. What's messed up is using a 7-year-old as emotional leverage. Hudson was crying now, confused and scared. Trevor, I said, voice dropping, take your son and leave. Don't contact me again unless you're ready to actually apologize. Not the kind where you're sorry I'm upset, the kind where you're sorry for what you did. He grabbed Hudson and walked out. Mom tried one more time. Evan, please. Out, I said. Now. She looked at Dad. He shook his head, already halfway to the elevator. They left. I closed the door, locked it, leaned against it. Zuko came out from the bedroom, tail wagging, clearly relieved. My phone buzzed. Marissa, how'd it go? I typed back, exactly how I planned. Gave them 2 hours. Kicked them out when they asked for money. Her reply, proud of you. Want company tonight? I smiled. Yeah, bring Zeus. Dogs can celebrate too. I looked around my apartment. Mine. Actually mine. No guilt, no obligation, no performance, just boundaries. And I'd never felt better. I thought kicking them out would be the end of it. Thought they'd fly back to Michigan, lick their wounds, maybe learn something. I was wrong. Sunday morning, 9:47 a.m. Doorbell rang again. Through the peephole. All 3 of them. Again. Same desperate expressions. Hudson looking exhausted. I didn't open the door. Evan! Mom's voice muffled through the door. We know you're in there. We need to talk. I stayed silent. Waited. Evan, please. We flew all this way. We're staying in Austin until we work this out. My blood went cold. Staying in Austin? Open the door. Dad's voice. Gruff. Demanding. I pulled out my phone, texted, "You need to leave. I told you yesterday. Not interested in whatever you're selling." Mom's phone buzzed. Watched through the peephole as she read it. "We're not leaving until you hear us out," she called through the door. Trevor banged on it. "Bro, stop being a coward. Open the door." I called building security instead. "Yeah, I've got people harassing me in my hallway. They won't leave. Can you send someone up?" 5 minutes later, a security guard arrived. Professional guy who'd seen this before. "Folks, you need to leave. Resident doesn't want you here." "We're his family." "Doesn't matter. This is private property. If you don't leave voluntarily, I'm calling the police." They left, finally. But Mom texted, "We're not giving up. We're staying at a hotel near the domain. We'll be back." I blocked the number. Found another text from a different number an hour later. "This is your mother. Don't block me. We need to talk about this like adults." Blocked that one too. Then emails started. Then Facebook messages. Then LinkedIn attempts. Trevor tried reaching me through Tanner. Through old high school friends on social media. Through my company's main line. Claiming it was a family emergency. HR called me Tuesday afternoon. "Evan, we had someone call claiming to be your brother. Said there was a family emergency and he needed to reach you urgently." "There's no emergency," I said. "He's harassing me for money. If he calls again, don't transfer it." "Understood. Just wanted to verify." Day 5. I took Zuko for his evening walk. Same route we always took. Around the block, through the small park, back home. I didn't see them waiting until it was too late. Trevor stepped out from behind a parked van. Dad right behind him. Before I could react, Dad grabbed Zuko's leash and yanked it out of my hands. Trevor shoved me backward. Dad, the man who'd barely raised his voice my entire childhood. Now he was wild-eyed, desperate. Desperation does ugly things to people. "What the—" "Shut up!" Trevor's voice was different now. Ugly. Desperate. "You want to play games? Fine. We'll play games." Dad was already walking away with my dog. Zuko was pulling back, confused, whimpering. "Zuko!" I started after them. Trevor blocked me, got right in my face. "You're gonna listen now. We need that money. You're gonna give us $75,000 or we're selling this dog tomorrow. There's a guy who buys working dogs. Cash. No questions asked." My hands were shaking. Not from fear, from rage. "You wouldn't. Try me." He smiled. Actually smiled. "You've got 48 hours. Wire the money or the dog's gone. And don't bother calling the cops. By the time they do anything, Zuko will be in another state with no papers. You'll never see him again." They drove off, my dog's face in the back window, looking at me like I'd abandoned him. I stood there on the sidewalk for a long time. Then I went home and called my lawyer. Explained everything, voice steady, mind already working. They took my dog, threatened to sell him if I don't pay. That's theft and extortion. We need to call the police. I already called 911, gave them the hotel name and Trevor's plate number. But I held off on the full complaint until we confirm they're still there. If I push too hard now, they run and the dog's gone. Smart, what else? "How much debt are my parents in?" "The house. Everything." Silence. Then, "I can run a search. Public records. Give me a few hours?" I waited. The results came back at 11 p.m. Mom and Dad's second mortgage. $85,000 at 9.5% interest. Already 2 months behind. Foreclosure proceedings would start at 90 days. Their house was worth $240,000. Total debt, $195,000. Equity, $45,000. Shrinking daily with fees and penalties. Trevor's business debts, $68,000 across 6 creditors. Personal guarantees on everything. Mom and Dad had put their house up as collateral on $30,000 of his supplier debt. They were 60 days from losing everything, and they'd just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Trevor texted the next morning. Clock's ticking. 36 hours. Don't test me. I didn't respond. Instead, I called my lawyer again. "I want to buy my parents' house before the bank takes it. Fair market value, cash offer." That's unexpected. They wanted to play hardball. Fine. I'll show them what hardball looks like. I spent the next 24 hours preparing. Had my lawyer draft the purchase offer. Lined up the cash. Called a real estate agent who specialized in distressed properties. At hour 44, Mom called from a new number. "Evan, please. Trevor's serious. He found a buyer. They're coming tomorrow morning." "I know," I said. "I pulled your foreclosure filing from the county records, by the way." Interesting timing. What? Check your email. I just sent you a purchase offer for the house. $240,000. Cash. Closes in 2 weeks. Dead silence. You're... what? I'm buying your house. The one you're about to lose because you co-signed Trevor's disasters. Fair market value. More than the bank will give you at auction. Evan, that's not... We don't want to sell. You don't have a choice. You're 2 months behind. Bank's going to take it anyway. I'm offering you a way out that doesn't destroy your credit completely. I paused. But here's the thing. That offer expires in 72 hours. And if anything happens to my dog before then, if Trevor sells him, hurts him, or I don't get him back in perfect condition, I pull the offer. Let the bank have everything. Watch you lose the house you lived in for 32 years over your golden child's stupidity. You can't. I can, and I will. You wanted to play games with my dog? Fine. Now I'm playing games with your house. Your move. I hung up. Less than an hour later, my doorbell rang. Opened it to find Dad standing there alone. Zuko on a leash beside him. Zuko was home. That was non-negotiable. Dad looked broken. Couldn't meet my eyes. Just handed me the leash and walked away without saying a word. Zuko jumped on me, tail wagging, licking my face. I held him for a long time. Then I went inside and forwarded the purchase agreement to my lawyer. They'll sign, I said. Make sure it's airtight. Because here's what they didn't understand. I wasn't buying their house to save them. I was buying it so they couldn't keep using it against me. The purchase went through exactly as planned. Mom and Dad tried to negotiate, tried to add conditions, wanted to stay as renters at below market rates, wanted me to forgive the debt, wanted me to be reasonable. I wasn't interested in reasonable. Fair market rent is $1,900, I told my lawyer. That's the number. They can pay it or they can leave. Their choice. They're claiming financial hardship, asking for $800. Then they can find somewhere else to live for $800. Not my property. They signed. Had no choice. Bank was already circling. The day the sale closed, I got a text from Trevor. You think you won something? You just bought yourself a landlord headache. Have fun dealing with Mom and Dad as tenants. I smiled at that, because he didn't know the rest of the plan. 2 weeks after closing, I served my parents with a formal notice. Month-to-month tenancy. No lease. Rent due on the 1st. $1,900. Late fee of $100 after the 5th. Eviction proceedings begin after 30 days of non-payment. Mom called crying. You can't do this to us. We're your parents. You took my dog, I said. Threatened to sell him. Used him as a bargaining chip for money. You think I forgot that? That was Trevor's idea. And you went along with it. Dad grabbed the leash. You knew what was happening. You made your choice. Evan, please. We can't afford $1,900. Your father's only working part-time. I'm doing odd jobs. We're barely surviving. Should have thought about that before you bet everything on Trevor. We're your parents. You're my tenants, I said. Big difference. And if you can't pay, you've got 30 days to figure something out. The first month they paid. Scraped it together somehow. Second month they were late. I filed the late fee. Third month they couldn't make it. Trevor had moved in with them. All 4 of them in that house now, including Hudson. Mom begged for an extension. I gave them 10 days. Then I started eviction proceedings. My lawyer handled everything. Clean. Professional. By the book. Meanwhile, Trevor's creditors closed in. Without the house as collateral anymore. It was mine now. They had nothing to secure the debt against. Judgments piled up. Wage garnishment hit whatever he was making at his warehouse job. His BMW got repossessed from my parents' driveway at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday. I watched the repo truck drive away from the property management app on my phone. There's a camera on the front porch now. The eviction notice got served on day 45. Mom showed up at my building that night. Security called me. There's a woman in the lobby. Says she's your mother. She's crying, sir. Tell her I'm not available. She says she'll wait. Then call the police after an hour if she won't leave. I watched the security feed from my laptop. Watched her sit in that lobby for 3 hours, dabbing her eyes, looking at her phone, hoping I'd come down. I didn't. Eventually she left. Sent me an email that night. Evan, we made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. We should never have let Trevor take your dog. Should never have threatened you. Should never have put him before you all those years. But please, don't take our home. Don't put us on the street. Your father's health is failing. Hudson needs stability. We're begging you. We're begging you, please. Mom, I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to my lawyer with one word. Proceed. The eviction finalized 2 weeks later. Sheriff's Department gave them 72 hours to vacate. I didn't go watch. Didn't need to. Property management sent me photos after. Empty rooms. Some damage to the walls. They'd left trash behind. Took the refrigerator even though it came with the house. I had it fixed up. New paint, new appliances, professional cleaning. Listed it for rent at $2,100 a month. Had a tenant within a week. Passive income, $2,100 rent minus $280 property taxes, $150 insurance, $200 management fee. Over $1,400 a month in my pocket, free and clear. Trevor ended up in a motel, then a shelter when the money ran out. Mom and Dad moved into a one-bedroom apartment on the bad side of town. Rent, $750. All four of them sharing that space. His Instagram went dark. No more posts about the entrepreneurial grind. No more motivational quotes. No more rented sports cars and designer clothes. Just silence. I should have felt bad. I didn't. Because I'd spent 32 years watching them sacrifice everything for Trevor's dreams, while ignoring mine. Watching them threaten to sell my dog like he was nothing. Like everything I loved was theirs to leverage. Watching them finally face consequences? That felt like justice. 8 months later, March in Austin, I was out with Marissa at a UT basketball game when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. This is Trevor. Can we talk? Please. I'm begging. I showed Marissa. She raised an eyebrow. Begging now? Apparently. You gonna meet him? I thought about it. Part of me wanted to ignore it completely. But another part, the part that remembered my dog's face in that car window, wanted to see what rock bottom looked like on him. Yeah, I said. I want to see this. We met at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral ground. Public. He looked destroyed. Gaunt. Clothes that didn't fit right. Shoes falling apart. Hands shaking when he sat down. I'm not here for money, he started. Good, because you're not getting any. I know. I know I'm not. He couldn't look at me. I needed you to see what I've become. What we've all become. I sipped my coffee. Said nothing. Hudson's living with his mom full time now. I lost custody because I couldn't provide stable housing. I see him twice a month. Supervised visits at a facility that smells like bleach. His voice cracked. He asked me why Grandma and Grandpa live in such a small apartment. I didn't know what to say. I still said nothing. Dad had a heart attack last month. Minor one. But they can't afford the follow-up care. Mom's working 2 jobs at 63 years old. They eat ramen for dinner most nights. He finally looked up at me. Eyes red. Face wet. And I did this. I did all of this. Yes, I said. You did. The dog thing. He shook his head. That was the worst moment of my life. Not when they arrested me. Not when I lost everything. The worst moment was watching you on that sidewalk as we drove away with Zuko. The look on your face. I'll never forget it. Neither will I. I'm sorry. The words came out broken. I'm so sorry. For everything. For 30 years of taking and never giving back. For thinking I deserved everything because Mom and Dad told me I was special. For taking your dog and threatening to sell him like some kind of monster. I was a monster. I am a monster. He was crying now. Really crying. The kind of crying you can't fake. Mom wanted me to tell you she's sorry too. She writes you letters she never sends. Pages and pages about how she failed you. How she chose wrong. How she wishes she could go back and do everything differently. I finished my coffee. Set the cup down. Dad too. He can't say it because he's too proud. But I hear him at night sometimes. Talking to himself. Saying your name. Saying he's sorry. Trevor wiped his face. Looked at me with something like hope. Is there any chance? Any chance at all we could, I don't know, start over? Not money. Not the house. Just maybe a phone call sometimes. Maybe you could meet Hudson again. He still asks about Uncle Evan. Still has that toy car you gave him when he was 4. I looked at him for a long time. Thought about everything. 32 years of being invisible. 32 years of achievements that were never good enough. Zuko shaking in my arms after I got him back. Mom crying in my lobby while I watched on the security feed. Then I stood up. No. His face crumbled. Evan, please. You asked if we could start over. The answer is no. There's nothing to start over. There was never anything real to begin with. I was an ATM to you. A backup plan. A resource to exploit when the favorite son ran out of options. That's not... You took my dog. I said it quiet. Cold. Grabbed him off the street. Threatened to sell him to some stranger. Used the only living thing I actually loved as a bargaining chip for money. And now you want me to pretend that didn't happen? To pick up the phone on holidays and make small talk? He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Tell Mom I got her message. Tell Dad I don't care about his nighttime apologies. Tell Hudson... I paused. Actually, don't tell Hudson anything. He'll figure it out when he's older. Figure out that his dad and his grandparents burned every bridge for money and then wondered why nobody came to visit. I started walking toward the door. Evan, wait. Please, I'm begging you. We're all begging you. I stopped. Didn't turn around. I know, I said. That's the difference between us. I never begged for anything. I just built something worth having. And you spent your whole life taking from people who did the work. We're family. No, we're not. Family doesn't threaten to sell your dog. Family doesn't show up demanding money when you haven't spoken in years. Family doesn't mortgage their house for the golden child and then come crying when it all falls apart. I finally turned to look at him. You're strangers who share my DNA. That's all you've ever been. I just didn't realize it until you made it impossible to ignore. I left him there, crying, alone, in a coffee shop full of people pretending not to watch. When I got back to Marissa, she looked up from her phone. How'd it go? They're still begging. You forgive them? No. I pulled her close. And I never will. She smiled. Good. Later that night, we were at my place, our place now, and my phone buzzed 3 more times. Mom, Dad, Trevor again. Different numbers, same desperate messages. Please. We're begging. Just one more chance. I deleted them all without reading past the first line. Zuko jumped up on the couch, laid his massive head on my lap like he knew, like he remembered that week away from home. I scratched behind his ears, and he made that content sound that meant everything was okay. Outside, Austin glowed. My city, my life, my choice. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks. Story 4. My brother stood up at Thanksgiving, announced my parents were handing him the family business I built for 15 years. So I burned it down and started my own. Now they're all bankrupt and begging. Sup Reddit. My golden child brother got handed the family business I built from the ground up. I walked out and took everything with me. What followed was absolute chaos. Here's the full story. I'm 34 male. Gonna set the scene for you. Picture Thanksgiving dinner. The whole family gathered around my parents' dining room table that seats 12, but always feels cramped because of all the tension nobody talks about. Turkey on the table. Mom's famous sweet potato casserole that nobody actually likes but everyone pretends to love. Dad's third glass of sparkling cider because he quit drinking after the heart attack, but still likes something fancy in a wine glass. Everyone's pretending we're some kind of Norman Rockwell painting instead of the dysfunctional mess we actually are. My aunt keeps asking when Lisa and I are going to have kids. My uncle won't shut up about his new boat. Kyle's wife Emma is showing everyone photos from their Hawaii trip on her phone for the 3rd time. Standard Thanksgiving stuff. Uncomfortable but manageable. That's when my brother Kyle, 28 male, stands up with this huge grin, taps his glass with a fork like he's about to give the State of the Union address, and drops the bomb that changed everything. Everyone, I have an amazing announcement, he says, looking around the table like he just won the lottery or cured cancer. Mom and Dad have decided to transfer ownership of Bennett Hardware to me. I'm officially taking over as owner and president starting January 1st. The room went silent except for my fork clattering onto my plate. That metallic clang seemed to echo in the sudden quiet, and I watched my fork bounce once before settling next to my untouched mashed potatoes. Bennett Hardware, the family business my grandfather started in 1968 with a single storefront and a dream of serving his community. The business my dad nearly ran into the ground in the 90s with terrible decisions and worse management. The business I'd spent 15 years rebuilding from scratch after Dad's heart attack forced him into semi-retirement. The business I'd poured my entire adult life into. 70-hour weeks, missed birthdays, canceled vacations, relationships that fell apart because I was always at the store. All of it building toward the assumption that someday this work would be recognized and rewarded. And they were giving it to Kyle. Just like that. No discussion, no warning, no consideration for what I'd sacrificed. My mom was smiling like this was the best news she'd heard all year. That proud mother look she usually reserved for Kyle's mediocre accomplishments. My dad nodded with satisfaction, like he just made the smartest business decision of his career. Kyle's wife Emma was practically bouncing in her seat with excitement, probably already mentally redecorating the office and planning shopping trips with the owner's wife budget. Even my aunt and uncle were congratulating him, asking questions about his plans and vision. My cousin Jake, who's worked retail management for years and actually understands business, looked uncomfortable but stayed quiet. Nobody looked at me, not once. Not my parents, not Kyle, not anyone at that table. It was like I didn't exist, Like the past 15 years had never happened. Like I was just another guest at this celebration of my brother's unearned success. Let me back up and explain how we got here, because this didn't happen overnight. This was years of building dysfunction, culminating in one spectacular moment of betrayal that had been decades in the making. Bennett Hardware started as a small shop in our town of about 40,000 people back in 1968. Grandpa Joe was a carpenter by trade who got tired of driving 30 miles to the nearest hardware store every time he needed supplies. Figured if he needed a local option, other contractors and homeowners probably did too. He started with basic inventory: lumber, nails, hand tools, paint, built relationships with suppliers and customers based on honesty and fair pricing. By the 80s, Bennett Hardware was the go-to spot for anyone who needed quality materials and knew what they were doing. Grandpa had this philosophy that you serve people right and they keep coming back. Revolutionary concept, apparently. The store was never going to make anyone rich, but it was solid. Employed 5 people full-time, paid them decent wages, contributed to the community. Grandpa sponsored Little League teams and donated materials for community projects. The kind of business that made a town better just by existing. When Grandpa Joe died in 1994, I was 6 years old. I remember the funeral, standing in an itchy suit while what seemed like half the town came through to pay respects. Contractors in work boots, old-timers who'd shopped there for decades, suppliers who'd become friends. They all told stories about how Grandpa had helped them out, given them credit when times were tough, taught them what they needed to know. My dad inherited the business in 1995. He'd worked there growing up, but never with the passion Grandpa had. For Dad, Bennett Hardware was just the family ATM, not a business that needed constant attention and smart decisions. Dad's idea of running a business was showing up 3 days a week, playing golf with suppliers, and hoping the numbers worked out through some kind of business magic. Spent more time at the country club than the store. Hired his buddies' kids for positions they weren't qualified for because nepotism trumped competence. Made decisions based on gut feelings instead of data or experience. They didn't work out. By 2003, the first cracks were showing. Inventory management was a disaster. We'd run out of popular items while overstocking things nobody bought. Employee turnover was high because Dad paid minimum wage and treated people like they were disposable. Customer service complaints were piling up. By 2008, Bennett Hardware was hemorrhaging money like a severed artery. Suppliers were threatening to cut us off because Dad had been consistently late on payments. Our credit lines were maxed out. We owed back taxes. The store looked shabby because Dad refused to invest in maintenance or updates. We were genuinely 2 months from bankruptcy, and Dad was still playing golf twice a week and telling himself everything was fine. Then Dad had his heart attack. Massive one, required triple bypass surgery, 2 weeks in the hospital, months of recovery. Doctor told him stress and overwork were killing him, which was darkly funny because Dad wasn't working hard enough to justify either condition. The stress came from watching the business collapse in real time while refusing to change anything or admit there was a problem. I was 19, just finished my first year of community college studying business management. Had been working at the store since I was 14, started stocking shelves after school, then moved up to helping customers, learning inventory systems, eventually handling cash registers and opening procedures. Knew the business inside and out, even if nobody ever acknowledged it or valued that knowledge. Dad called me to the hospital 2 days after his surgery. Still looked terrible, pale, weak, hooked up to monitors. Mom was there too, looking exhausted and scared in a way I'd never seen before. That's when I knew this conversation was going to change everything. "Son," Dad said, his voice rough from the breathing tube they'd just removed, "I need to ask you something important. The business needs someone to run it while I recover. Would you be willing to take over day-to-day operations? Just temporarily, until I get back on my feet." Mom jumped in before I could answer. "We know you're in school, but this is an emergency. The family needs you. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't critical. Just temporarily." Famous last words in the history of family businesses everywhere. I looked at my dad lying in that hospital bed, at my mom's worried face, and thought about Grandpa Joe and what he'd built. Thought about the employees who'd lose their jobs if we went under. Thought about being 19 and getting handed the keys to a sinking ship. "Okay," I said. "I'll do it." That temporary arrangement lasted 15 years. The longest temporary job in recorded history. I put my college plans on hold. Just for a semester, I told myself. That semester turned into a year, then 2 years. Then eventually the idea of going back to school just faded away like morning fog. There was always another crisis, another fire to put out, another reason I couldn't leave. Spent the first 6 months just keeping the doors open, which was harder than it sounds. Our situation was worse than I'd understood. Suppliers weren't just late on payments, some hadn't been paid in 4 months. Our credit was shot. Banks wouldn't extend any more lines. We were operating on fumes and prayers. The inventory system was an absolute disaster. We were supposedly using some software Dad had bought in 1997 that barely worked on Windows XP. Half the products we had in stock weren't in the computer system at all, just sitting on shelves with handwritten price tags. Meanwhile, the computer showed we had inventory for items that hadn't been in stock for months or even years. I spent 3 weeks doing a complete physical inventory count, came in before opening and stayed until midnight, scanning every shelf, counting every box, recording everything by hand in notebooks. Found $10,000 worth of merchandise that had been sitting in the back room so long it was obsolete or damaged. Also discovered we'd been telling customers we were out of popular items that we actually had, just misshelved or mislabeled. Customer service was a joke. We had 3 employees who showed up when they felt like it, took hour-long breaks, and spent most of their time gossiping instead of helping people. When customers asked technical questions about products, these employees would just make stuff up, rather than admit they didn't know. Got complaints regularly about wrong information leading to failed projects. I started working the floor myself, helping customers, learning what they actually needed. Turned out when you hire people who know what they're talking about and actually care about solving problems, customers notice and appreciate it. I fired 2 of the 3 employees within the first month. Sounds harsh, and maybe it was, but I didn't have time for people who were actively destroying what I was trying to save. Plus, I discovered they'd been stealing, taking merchandise home and selling it online, pocketing cash from customers who paid in person. Small amounts each time, but it added up to thousands over the years Dad had been checked out. The 3rd employee, Frank, turned out to be solid once he realized someone was actually running the place instead of just collecting a paycheck. He was in his 50s, had worked construction before his back gave out, knew products inside and out. He'd been frustrated for years watching the business decline, but had stayed because he needed the job, and his wife's medical bills meant he couldn't risk unemployment. "I'm glad you're here," Frank told me after the first month. "Your dad's a nice guy, but he had no business running this place. Your grandpa would roll over in his grave if he saw what it had become." I started rebuilding the inventory system from scratch. This was 2008, and I was a 19-year-old who'd grown up with computers, but had never managed a business database. Taught myself from YouTube videos, online forums, trial and error. Stayed up until 3 a.m. for weeks, building spreadsheets, creating databases, teaching myself SQL so I could make the system actually work. Built a custom solution that tracked inventory, automated reordering, integrated with our supplier systems, and generated reports that actually meant something. Every item got a barcode, every transaction got recorded, every supplier relationship got documented. Took 4 months of nights and weekends, but when it was done, I could tell you exactly what we had, where it was, how much it cost, and when we needed to reorder. Suppliers were the next challenge. Most of them were ready to drop us completely because Dad had burned too many bridges. I made personal visits to every major supplier within driving distance. Showed up in person, introduced myself, explained the situation honestly, showed them the new systems, the new management approach, the new commitment to professionalism. "Your father's been telling me the check's in the mail for 6 months," one supplier told me bluntly. "Why should I believe you're different?" "Because I'm not my father," I said, "and I've got a payment plan that I will stick to, even if it means I don't take a salary. You've got my cell number now. If there's ever a problem, call me directly. No more excuses, no more delays, no more broken promises." Most of them agreed to give us one more chance, though several put us on cash-on-delivery terms until we rebuilt trust. Fair enough. Over the next 2 years, I paid off every old debt, met every payment deadline, proved that Bennett Hardware under new management was worth working with again, expanded our product lines into areas the big box stores weren't covering well, did research on what professional contractors needed that they couldn't get at Home Depot or Lowe's, specialized plumbing fixtures that plumbers needed for historical renovations, high-end power tools that serious carpenters wanted, contractor-grade materials that job site foremen could rely on, found our niche serving professional tradespeople who needed quality products, knowledgeable staff, and reliable service. The big stores had selection and low prices, but they couldn't compete with our expertise and relationships. When a plumber called at 7 a.m. because he needed a specific part to finish a job, we'd have it ready for pickup in 20 minutes. Try getting that from a store that makes minimum wage employees follow corporate scripts. Hired better employees and actually trained them. Novel concept in retail. Brought in people who had trades background, retired contractors, former electricians, guys who'd worked construction and knew the products from using them. Paid them above market rate and gave them actual benefits. Created a training program so everyone knew not just what we sold, but why contractors chose one product over another and how to help solve their problems. The numbers started turning around slowly, then faster. First year, I managed to stop the bleeding and break even, which felt like winning the Super Bowl. Second year, we actually turned a profit for the first time in 5 years. Only 30,000, but proof the model worked. Third year, we did 90,000 in profit. Fourth year, we hit 150,000. By year 5, we doubled our annual revenue from Dad's last full year running things. By year 10, we'd opened a second location in the next town over. By year 13, we had 3 locations and were doing $4.2 million annually. 15 years of this. 80-hour weeks. Solving problems. Building relationships. Training employees. Managing inventory. Negotiating contracts. Handling payroll. Dealing with emergencies. Missing family events. Putting my life on hold because the business needed me. And I did it all while Dad was semi-retired, which was a polite way of saying he came in twice a week to second-guess my decisions, tell stories about the good old days that never actually existed, and take credit for the success when talking to his friends at the country club. Built this business from nothing, he'd tell people. My boy helps out with the operations side, but the vision and strategy, that's all me. The vision and strategy that nearly bankrupted the company before I took over. But sure, Dad, take credit for everything. Meanwhile, Kyle was busy being the favorite child who could do no wrong, living the life I'd sacrificed for the business. Kyle went to State University on a partial athletics scholarship. Baseball, nothing special. Barely played in actual games, but enough to make Dad prouder than anything I'd ever accomplished. Spent 4 years partying his way through a communications degree with a 2.6 GPA that would have gotten me disowned, but somehow made him well-rounded in my parents' eyes. After graduation, Kyle bounced between marketing jobs like a pinball. Started at a startup that folded within 6 months. Then an advertising agency where he lasted 8 months before they restructured him out. Then a corporate marketing position where he made it 18 months before being let go for not meeting performance expectations. His resume was a graveyard of failed opportunities and bridges burned. But my parents treated every new position like he'd just been appointed CEO of Apple. Kyle just started at Dynamic Marketing Solutions, Mom would announce at family dinners. They're giving him real responsibility this time. 3 months later. Well, Dynamic wasn't the right fit for Kyle's talents. He's interviewing with some really exciting companies, though. The pattern repeated for 6 years. Job, failure, excuse, new job. Always someone else's failure to recognize his brilliance, never his own inability to do basic work. When Kyle got engaged to Emma 3 years ago, my parents went completely overboard. Threw them an engagement party that cost more than my entire wedding. Paid for the actual wedding. $20,000 at a country club with a scenic view. 200 guests. Destination bachelor party in Vegas that cost another $3,000. Meanwhile, when Lisa and I got engaged 2 years earlier, my parents' contribution was $500 and a lecture about being financially responsible. We had a backyard wedding with 50 people and a DJ who worked for tips. The whole thing cost about $3,000, which we paid ourselves. It was actually a great wedding, intimate, surrounded by people who genuinely cared. But watching my parents' reaction to Kyle's engagement versus mine hurt more than I wanted to admit. Kyle and Emma bought their first house last year. My parents fronted the down payment. $40,000 just handed over without hesitation. When I'd asked to borrow $10,000 3 years earlier to expand the second store location, Dad said I should learn to manage money better. That expansion, which I eventually funded myself, generated an additional $200,000 in annual revenue. But sure, Dad, ambition is the problem. The favoritism wasn't even subtle anymore. My parents had decided Kyle needed extra help while I'd proven I could handle things on my own. Never mind that my success came from backbreaking work, while Kyle's failures came from entitled laziness. Here's what really burned, though. Kyle never worked at the store. Not once. Not even summers during high school. Dad always said Kyle was too smart for retail work and should focus on his future. While I was learning inventory management and customer service, Kyle was sleeping until noon and playing video games. So sitting at that Thanksgiving table, listening to Kyle announce he was taking over the business I'd built, something inside me just snapped. "Congratulations," I said, my voice flat. "When did you decide this?" My dad cleared his throat. "We've been discussing it for a few months now. Kyle's got fresh ideas and energy. It's time for the next generation to take the lead. Next generation, I repeated. I've been running Bennett Hardware for 15 years. I am the next generation. Mom jumped in with her practiced peacemaker routine. You've done wonderful work, honey, but Kyle has education in business management and communications. He's better positioned to take the company to the next level. Kyle has education in business management. I had to bite my tongue so hard I tasted blood. What about the expansion plans we discussed? I asked Dad. The new warehouse system? The online ordering platform I've been developing? Dad waved his hand dismissively. Kyle can handle all that. You've done your part, but it's time to let someone with formal training take over. Formal training. From the guy who barely passed introduction to marketing and got fired from 3 jobs in 5 years. Lisa grabbed my hand under the table. She knew what this meant to me, knew how much I'd sacrificed. She'd watched me work 70-hour weeks for years, skip vacations, miss family events, all to build something I thought would eventually be mine. Kyle started talking about his vision for the company, modernizing the brand, expanding into e-commerce, reaching younger demographics. All buzzwords he'd probably picked up from LinkedIn articles. He had zero understanding of our actual business model or customer base. What about the contractor accounts? I asked. We do 40% of our revenue through commercial contracts with local builders and plumbers. How are you planning to maintain those relationships? Kyle looked confused for a second, then recovered. Oh, I'll definitely prioritize relationship management with key stakeholders. That's one of my core competencies. He didn't even know what contractor accounts were. I could tell by the way his eyes glazed over when I mentioned them. And inventory management? I pressed. We're carrying about 800,000 in stock across 3 locations. How are you handling reordering, seasonal adjustments, supplier negotiations? I'll obviously learn all that operational stuff, Kyle said, getting defensive. But the real value I bring is strategic thinking and brand development. Strategic thinking. From a guy who once asked me if Alaska was closer to Russia or Canada. The dinner continued, but I barely heard any of it. My mind was racing through 15 years of memories. Every late night fixing the books. Every weekend managing inventory. Every crisis I'd solved while Dad was golfing and Kyle was finding himself. After dinner, I cornered my parents in the kitchen while Kyle was showing everyone photos of their recent vacation to Hawaii. I need to understand this decision, I said, keeping my voice level. I've run Bennett Hardware for 15 years. Why are you giving it to someone who's never worked there? My dad looked uncomfortable. Look, you've done great work. Really. But Kyle's family now, he needs stability. This business can provide that for him. I'm family too. I sacrificed college, relationships, everything to save this business when you couldn't. Mom touched my arm with that patronizing gesture she'd perfected. And we're so grateful. But Kyle needs this opportunity more than you do. You're already established. He's still figuring things out. There it was. The truth underneath all the business talk. Kyle needed to be taken care of, so they were handing him my life's work like a participation trophy. What's my role going to be? I asked. Dad looked relieved that I'd asked instead of fought. Kyle will need support during the transition. We were hoping you'd stay on as operations manager. Help him learn the ropes. Operations manager. After 15 years of running everything, I'd be demoted to teaching my incompetent younger brother how to do my job. For how long? 6 months, maybe a year. Just until Kyle gets comfortable with everything. I nodded slowly, doing mental calculations. And compensation? We'll work out fair terms, Dad said vaguely. Kyle will obviously get the ownership stake and profit sharing, but you'll have a steady salary. A steady salary while Kyle collected profits from the business I'd built. Perfect. That night, Lisa and I stayed up until 3 a.m. talking it through. She was angrier than I was, which helped me process the whole thing. You should quit, she said flatly. Walk away and let them drown. It's the family business, I argued weakly. Grandpa Joe built it. I can't just abandon it. Your grandfather built it. Your father nearly destroyed it. You rebuilt it. And now they're giving it to someone who doesn't deserve it and never worked for it. Lisa wasn't wrong. If I leave, it'll collapse. Kyle can't run a hardware store. He doesn't know inventory from interest rates. That's not your problem, Lisa said. You've spent 15 years fixing their mistakes. How many more years are you going to sacrifice? I couldn't sleep that night. Kept thinking about all the decisions that had led here. Every time I'd said yes when I should have said no. Every sacrifice I'd made, thinking it would eventually mean something. By morning, I'd made my decision. Monday morning, I walked into Bennett Hardware at 6 a.m., like always. Opened the store, checked inventory shipments, reviewed the weekend sales numbers. Normal routine. Then I started documenting everything. Spent the next 2 weeks creating detailed records of every system, every supplier relationship, every customer account, every operational procedure. Wrote it all down in excruciating detail, but kept the copies for myself. The versions I left for Kyle were deliberately incomplete, missing key details, skipping critical steps, leaving out supplier contact information that took me years to develop. Nothing illegal, just unhelpful. I also reached out to our key suppliers privately, told them I was moving on from Bennett Hardware, and wanted to maintain our professional relationships for future opportunities. Several of them said they'd been working with me, not the company, and would follow wherever I went. Called our biggest contractor accounts too. Same conversation. Thanked them for years of business, let them know I wouldn't be involved with Bennett Hardware going forward, but hoped we could work together again someday. They all said variations of the same thing. They'd been doing business with me personally, not the Bennett name. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, I walked into Dad's office and put my resignation letter on his desk. He looked up from his newspaper. Yeah, he read the actual newspaper during business hours, and seemed genuinely surprised. What's this? My resignation. Effective immediately. I've prepared transition documents for Kyle. They're on the shared drive. Dad's face went red. You can't just quit. Kyle needs you here for the transition. Kyle's an adult with a business degree. He'll figure it out. This is incredibly selfish, Mom said. She'd appeared in the doorway like she'd been listening. Probably had been. After everything we've done for you. That line almost made me laugh. After everything you've done for me? I've run this business for 15 years. I saved it from bankruptcy. I built it into something successful. And you're giving it to Kyle because he needs stability. You haven't done anything for me. We gave you a job when you needed one, Dad said. I gave myself a job. I gave myself 15 jobs. I did everything while you played golf and told yourself you were still relevant. Mom looked like I'd slapped her. How dare you speak to your father that way? I'm done, I said simply. Kyle can have the business. He can have the headaches, the stress, the 70-hour weeks. I'm walking away. You'll never work in this industry again, Dad threatened. I know everyone in this business. No, you don't. You used to. 15 years ago. But I'm the one who built the relationships. I'm the one suppliers call when they have problems. I'm the one contractors trust. You're just the name on the building. I walked out without looking back. Kyle called me that afternoon, trying to sound friendly. Hey man, I heard you resigned. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I really need your help with the transition. Read the documents I prepared, I said. Everything you need is in there. But those documents are like 50 pages. Can't you just walk me through the important stuff? The important stuff is all in there. You have a business degree. You'll figure it out. Come on, don't be like this. We're brothers. You're right. We are brothers. And a real brother wouldn't take something his sibling spent 15 years building. He got defensive then. Mom and Dad offered it to me. Was I supposed to say no? Yeah, actually. That would have been the decent thing to do. That's not fair. You're mad at them, not me. I'm mad at all of you. You think you can run a hardware store because you have a degree and some LinkedIn articles about disruption. You're going to fail. And when you do, don't call me. He hung up without responding. For the next month, I took a real vacation for the first time in 15 years. Lisa and I went to the mountains, stayed in a cabin with no cell service, and I tried to figure out what came next. The answer came from an unexpected source. Frank, the longtime employee who'd been there since Dad's days, called my personal cell. I know you said you were done, but I thought you should know what's happening at the store. I'm trying not to think about it, I admitted. Kyle's driving it into the ground. He changed all the supplier contracts without reading them first. We're locked into premium rates on stuff we used to get at cost. He fired our best salespeople because he thought they were too old for our target demographic. And he's been posting on social media about our grand reopening next month, where he's planning to give away free merchandise to build brand awareness. That got my attention. Free merchandise? Yeah, he's planning to give away about $30,000 in tools and supplies as promotional items. Says it's a loss leader strategy. Loss leader strategy. Kyle had learned a business term and immediately misapplied it. How are the numbers looking? Bad. We're down 40% from this time last year. Contractors are calling asking for you. Suppliers are confused about the new contracts. And Kyle spends most of his time in his office working on rebranding initiatives instead of actually running the business. I thought about warning them. Seriously considered calling my parents and explaining that Kyle was actively destroying what I'd built. But then I remembered them at Thanksgiving, smiling while they gave away my future to someone who didn't earn it or deserve it. Thanks for letting me know, Frank. I appreciate it. What should I do? Update your resume? Start looking for other opportunities. This won't end well. That night, Lisa asked what I was thinking about. I'd been quiet all evening, clearly processing something. I want to start my own hardware store, I said. She smiled. I was wondering when you'd figure that out. It's risky. No guarantee customers will follow me, and it'll take everything we have saved. You built Bennett Hardware from nothing once. You can do it again. I started planning immediately. Found a commercial space in the next town over, about 20 minutes from Bennett's locations. Far enough to avoid direct competition accusations, close enough that contractors could easily reach us. Used our savings for first and last month's rent. Bought basic inventory from suppliers I'd worked with for years. Several of them extended credit based on our relationship, which was huge. Named it Summit Hardware. Clean, simple, professional. Soft opened in February, 3 months after leaving Bennett Hardware. Didn't announce it publicly, just let word spread through my contractor network. Within 2 weeks, I had my old customers stopping by, checking out the new place. The feedback was immediate and overwhelming. This is what Bennett's used to be before Kyle took over, one contractor told me. We're so glad you're back. By March, Summit Hardware was doing steady business. Nothing spectacular yet, but profitable from day one because I knew exactly what I was doing. Meanwhile, Bennett Hardware was imploding. Frank quit and came to work for me. He brought intelligence about just how bad things had gotten. Kyle's grand reopening promotion cost them $45,000 in free merchandise and generated almost no new business. Most people just took the free stuff and never came back. The rebranding initiative alienated their core customers. Kyle had redesigned everything with a modern, minimalist aesthetic that looked nothing like a hardware store. Contractors who'd shopped there for decades felt like they were walking into an Apple store instead of a place to buy power tools. Employee morale was destroyed. Kyle had fired the experienced staff and hired younger people with better energy who knew nothing about hardware or customer service. Turnover was over 80% in 4 months. The financial situation was catastrophic. Kyle had signed terrible contracts with suppliers because he didn't understand the pricing structures. He'd invested heavily in social media marketing that generated lots of likes but zero sales. He'd committed to a new computer system that cost $60,000 and didn't integrate with their existing inventory management. In April, Summit Hardware had its first month where revenue exceeded Bennett Hardware's numbers from the same month previous year. My 3-month-old startup was outperforming the established family business. That's when my parents called requesting an emergency family meeting. We met at their house, the same dining room where Kyle had announced his takeover at Thanksgiving. Now both my parents looked exhausted and worried. Kyle was there too, but he wouldn't make eye contact. Dad started with his usual authoritative approach. We need to discuss the situation with Bennett Hardware. What situation? I asked innocently. You know what situation. The business is struggling. Kyle's still learning. We need your help to turn things around. I gave you detailed transition documents. Kyle has a business degree. What more help does he need? Mom's voice was tight. Don't be difficult. This is family business. Your grandfather's legacy. My grandfather's legacy was a successful hardware store serving the community. What's happening now is something else entirely. Kyle finally spoke up. Look, I know I made some mistakes, but I'm learning. We just need some guidance to get back on track. What kind of guidance? Come back, Dad said bluntly. We'll work out a partnership arrangement. You and Kyle can run it together. Partnership arrangement, I repeated. You mean I do all the work while Kyle has the ownership stake and takes credit? It wouldn't be like that, Kyle protested weakly. That's exactly what it would be like. Just like before, except now I'd be cleaning up your messes instead of Dad's. Mom tried the guilt approach. Your grandfather built this business. Don't you care about preserving his memory? I preserved it for 15 years. Then you gave it to someone who's destroying it in 4 months. That's on you, not me. Dad's face was getting red again. You started a competing business out of spite. You're actively trying to destroy us. I started a business because it's what I know how to do. I'm not trying to destroy anything. I'm just not trying to save you anymore. We could lose everything, Mom said. And for the first time, she sounded scared instead of angry. You gave everything to Kyle. That was your choice. The meeting ended badly. Dad threatened legal action about non-compete agreements that didn't exist. Mom cried about family loyalty. Kyle sat there looking miserable, probably realizing for the first time that having something handed to you and actually running it are two very different things. I left feeling nothing. Not satisfaction, not guilt, just exhausted indifference toward people who'd never valued me until they needed something. May brought more interesting developments. Bennett Hardware's main supplier cut them off after unpaid invoices stacked up. The bank called their line of credit due to covenant violations. 2 of their 3 locations closed. Meanwhile, Summit Hardware was thriving. I'd hired 3 more employees, all experienced people who'd left Bennett's after Kyle took over. Expanded our inventory. Started my own contractor loyalty program that was immediately popular. One of Bennett's biggest contractor accounts called me directly. They'd been doing business with Bennett Hardware since my grandfather's time. Their purchasing manager got right to the point. "We've had nothing but problems since you left. Delayed orders, wrong products, nobody who knows what they're talking about. We want to move our account to Summit Hardware." That account alone was worth about $200,000 annually. I signed them on the spot. In June, my parents put Bennett Hardware up for sale. The listing price was laughably optimistic given the company's current condition. No serious buyers emerged. Kyle got a job doing social media management for a car dealership. Emma left him. Apparently, she'd signed up to be married to a successful business owner, not someone who'd spectacularly failed at his big opportunity. My parents' financial situation was dire. They'd guaranteed business loans personally. The house was at risk. Their retirement savings had been invested in the business that was now worthless. July brought another family meeting request. This time just my parents, no Kyle. They looked like they'd aged 10 years and 8 months. "We need your help," Dad said without preamble. "Not for us, for your mother. The house is going into foreclosure. We've lost everything." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, meaning it. I wasn't happy they were suffering. I just wasn't going to fix it. "You could buy Bennett Hardware," Mom suggested. "We'd sell it to you below market value. You could merge it with your new business." "Bennett Hardware has no market value," I pointed out. "The brand is damaged, the inventory is outdated, the locations are underwater on their leases. There's nothing there worth buying." "So you'll just let it die?" Dad asked. "I'm not letting anything happen. You made choices. Kyle made choices. Those choices had consequences." "This is revenge," Mom said bitterly. "You're punishing us for choosing Kyle." "No, I'm living my life, I'm running my business. Your situation is the result of your own decisions, not my revenge." They left without saying goodbye. My parents tried one more time to reconnect. A letter arrived asking if we could talk. No demands this time, no guilt trips, just a request to talk. We met at a neutral coffee shop. They both looked smaller somehow, diminished. Dad's hair had gone completely gray. Mom's hands shook slightly as she stirred sugar into her coffee. "We were wrong," Dad said after a long silence. "About Kyle, about the business, about how we treated you." "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because it's true," Mom said. "We thought we were helping Kyle by giving him the business. We thought he'd step up and become the man we always believed he could be. We were wrong. You didn't just give him the business," I said quietly. "You took it from me. After I spent 15 years building it, you gave it to someone who hadn't earned it. That's what hurt." "I know," Dad said. "I know that now. I was proud of you, but I never told you. I thought tough love would make you stronger. All it did was push you away. I needed you to see me," I told them. "Not as free labor, not as someone reliable who'd always be there to clean up messes, just as your son who worked his tail off for something that mattered." We talked for 2 hours. They didn't ask for anything. No money, no help, no second chances. Just acknowledged what they'd done and apologized. I didn't forgive them. Not completely. Some things don't heal that easily. But I listened. A month later, I hired my dad part-time at Summit Hardware. Not running anything, just working the floor, helping customers, using his actual knowledge of hardware that had been buried under years of executive detachment. He was good at it. Customers liked him. I didn't hire Kyle. He's still at the car dealership, apparently doing okay. We don't talk much, but it's not hostile anymore. Just 2 people who were once brothers and now are pleasant strangers. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks. Story 5. So here's the deal. I'm 26 years old and there's this guy. Let's call him Max, okay? Max and I have been together for quite a while, right from the start. Now, Max's family, they're pretty cool with me, but his sister, let's name her Olivia, is just a total nightmare to deal with. Just to give you the full picture, Max is the oldest kid in his family. His parents came from Asia, and then 3 years after Max was born, along comes Olivia. Max has shared stories about how their parents are super strict about school grades. They always pushed him and Olivia to be at the top of their class, aiming for the best scores possible. But here's the thing. Max wasn't really into the whole studying scene. He was more of an athlete, really good at sports. Plus, he was super into chess, joining the chess club at school, and even hanging out after school to play. But his parents, They didn't get it. They thought chess was a total waste of time, something anybody could do, and they kept nagging him to quit and focus on his studies. Max was smart, but not in the way his parents wanted him to be. Olivia, on the other hand, was exactly what they wanted. She was all about the books, always nailing her exams and spending her nights buried in homework. As you can guess, she was favored more by their parents. Max has told me how his parents would always compare both their grades and reward Olivia for being better. For example, they would allow her to have a grand birthday party, have sleepovers with her friends, and buy her bigger presents to show their affection. However, when it came to Max, they would tell him regularly that they were ashamed about his marks. When it came to his birthdays, they would refuse to spend any money and tell him how he needs to work harder if he wants to earn a birthday party and gifts. Even writing about this makes me so sad because I have watched Max break down in front of me while he told me stories from his childhood and how his parents always treated Olivia better. She was the golden child in the family, and she clearly enjoyed it. She would put him down at every chance she got and make fun of his marks. She never had any respect for him as an older sibling, and I think this disrespect still continues today. When it was time for Max to go to college, his parents made it clear that they could not afford to pay for both of their college tuitions, so they could only pay for his sister's tuition fees, and he needed to apply for scholarships or take a student loan. This completely shocked Max, and they had a huge fight. He went off on his parents about how they always treated him, and why they even had him if they didn't like him. His parents told him how they have made so many sacrifices over the years for their children. So now it was time for Max to grow up. Olivia agreed with her parents and told Max how he was clearly not the intelligent one in the family, so he needed to just suck up and sacrifice for her sake. She also called him a bunch of other things, like the loser. It was after this fight that Max realized that his parents would always continue to favor her more than him. When he got admission to his college to study computer science with scholarships, he decided to move out and go low contact with his family. His parents never came to see him off or help him move into the dorm, which is so heartbreaking to even think about. Over the years, they would sometimes talk, but Max would mostly keep it short. When he was graduating cum laude, his parents wanted to come and cheer for him, but Max forbade them from coming. They started to cry about how he was their son, and they wanted to be there for his big moment. Max reminded them about how they had not even bothered to pay for his college tuition while they paid for Olivia's tuition, so they were not allowed to be a part of his achievements anymore. They fought a bit, but in the end, his parents agreed to stay away. This is how their relationship had been for a long time. Now I'm an architect, and I have done a master in urban planning from one of the top universities in our country. Unlike Max's parents, my parents were relatively easy on me. I'm a single child, so I pretty much got all the attention. My parents are professors, so all my life I was encouraged to study what I like and have other hobbies as well. I have to admit that I was lucky to never face any comparison. My parents have always had my back. When I met Max, he and I were working from the same office complex but on different floors, as his company was on the second floor and mine was on the seventh. We would usually meet in the elevators and have mutual friends who would hang out as a group. This is how I met him during a party, and we hit it off. Max was charming, sweet, genuinely kind. He is the sort of boyfriend who brings me flowers every month, brings me my favorite cheesecake when I have period cramps without even asking cooks for me, and is not shy to tell me how much he loves me. Now I'm a sucker when it comes to romance. So it didn't take us long before I moved in with him, as it made more sense since we did spend a lot of time together at each other's place. Now I've heard horror stories from my girlfriends about how some of their boyfriends don't help them out around the house. But Max is the complete opposite. He is more of an OCD than me, and deep cleans our home every weekend. We share and divide tasks, like if he cooks, then I clean up, or if he does the laundry, then I fold them. This is how it has always been between us. When it came time to meet each other's parents, he told me how he had been pretty much low contact with his parents for a long time and only talked to them whenever necessary, since they never treated him well. And he recounted to me all his childhood stories. However, when he did decide to reach out to his parents about me, they were ecstatic to talk to him and immediately arranged a lunch date with us during the weekend. I was a bit nervous to meet his parents, but this was an important step for us, so I wanted to put in my 100%. His parents were unexpectedly warm towards me, and once they heard about my academic background, they became even more polite. Looking back, yes, it's true that they started to like me because of my academic inclination, but I didn't mind as I wanted to impress them. His parents talked to me very frankly and told me how after Max had gone low contact with him over the years after college, they had been thinking and realizing that they needed to be better to him. They told me how grateful they were that I came into his life. Otherwise, he might have never reached out to them. They even awkwardly apologized to him, which completely surprised Max. It was nice to see that his parents were finally making an effort in the right direction. However, when Kylie arrived, the mood changed. Max had not been informed that she would even be coming, so he was a bit miffed. His parents started to justify saying how they had decided to call her, since they felt this would be the perfect time to let go of the past so their family could move on. His mother continued to tell him how his sister was here, only because she was happy for him. Kylie politely gave me a hug, and she just seemed super shy of my first impression. She completely ignored Max as if he didn't even exist and didn't say a single thing to him. When his parents started to brag to her about my academic background, her behavior changed. She started to question me about my work and the university I went to, and would then subtly mock how urban planners are affecting the environment. She even asked me at one point how I felt about murdering trees, which shocked me. It was like she wanted to put me down in front of her parents because she just could not handle the fact that they liked me. Throughout our lunch, she was passive-aggressive. She disagreed with or corrected everything I said, no matter how mundane. When we were finished for lunch, my father-in-law wanted to pay, but Max was insisting that he wanted to take care of the bills. Out of nowhere, Olivia interrupted, saying I should be the one paying for it. Since they were all here because of me, she certainly taunted this since I was earning so much I could make good use of my money at least. This seriously offended me as I did quite well, but she had no right to talk about me that way, and I think her parents noticed my facial expressions also. They immediately reprimanded her, and father-in-law told her that she was being extremely rude to me since I was just a guest. Mother-in-law agreed and told Olivia to shut her mouth. She clearly didn't like that and got up from her seat pissed, then walk out of the restaurant. Max's parents apologized to me multiple times for her behavior and told me how she takes some time to warm up to strangers. I decided to let it go, thinking that I would never have to interact with her anyway. And for the sake of Max, I should keep it together. This should have been my first red flag about her, unlike Max's family. My family absolutely adored Max and loved getting to know him. My parents were happy that we were living together and would check on me regularly over the years of dating. I have noticed that Olivia is always the first one to view my stories on social media. Now, I do have a public account where I post about my designs and professional achievements. I just have 1,000 followers, so it's easy for me to notice when she views my stories every day, but does not interact or follow me. When Max's parents started to meet with me and Max more often, Olivia's obsession with me only grew stronger. We had a family message group between me, Max, his parents, and Olivia. It was mostly inactive unless we all met up and clicked pictures. So then we would send these pictures in the group. Olivia never showed up to meet with us anymore after the first time. However, she could see all the pictures in our group, and this probably upset her even more once she sent a Facebook link to the group asking me if this was me. Curiously, I clicked it to see that it was a photo from years ago with my then high school boyfriend. In the picture, we were hugging, and he had uploaded it when we had been dating. I have completely forgotten about the photo, and I don't even know how she found it or why she would even send it to the group. But I was not going to shy away from the truth, so I told her that this was me and that he was an old boyfriend. Olivia immediately replied, saying how I seemed awfully close and that I should ask my ex-boyfriend to remove this picture from his Facebook since it was not appropriate anymore. I was taken aback by how ridiculous she sounded. First of all, she had stopped me so much that she had ended up on my ex-boyfriend's page and then sent the photo link to the group knowingly, and then she blamed me for it. Thankfully, Max, who had probably been reading our messages in the group, replied saying this was a completely normal picture and that he had no issues with the picture posted years ago. Olivia replied back passive-aggressively how he should date someone with better standards. I was so pissed reading her message that I would have ripped her hair out if she was standing in front of me. Max messaged back to her that he did have better standards, since I earned more than 4 times her salary. Now I know this must have stung her since Olivia worked as a graphic designer, and her parents had mentioned how she didn't earn enough for her to even move out. Olivia immediately exited the group in anger, and later called Max, screaming and crying to him that he had no right to insult her in the group, and that she was so done with us. Max didn't care, and this made her even more angry. I don't know what happened, but Max's parents did call and apologize to me in the evening. They told me how they had talked to her and that she was going to be better moving forward. They apologized to me for her and told me that they had no issues with the picture whatsoever. It was very awkward to be talking to my in-laws about my ex-boyfriend from years ago, but I was glad that they were not like Olivia. After this incident, Olivia pretty much stayed away from us. She never joined the group or bothered me again. A few months later, we were shocked to find out that she had eloped with a guy and got married in Vegas. Her parents were extremely shocked and pissed that they didn't even know who this guy was, nor what they invited to the wedding. It turns out that Olivia had been dating an older guy, Isaac, who's 15 years older than her for quite some time. They met at work when Isaac was still married. This affair led to Isaac's wife divorcing him. When their divorce was finalized, Olivia eloped with him because she knew her parents would never allow her to marry an older divorcee or forgive her for having an affair with a married man. She had kept all of this from her parents for several years. She never even told them about any of this since they were already pissed that he was so much older than her. Max and I only found out about Isaac's history when he stopped the guy on his LinkedIn and Instagram. Apart from the affair part, we were happy for her since we hoped she would turn over a new leaf after their marriage. Although we refrained from contacting her, however, a few weeks later, I received a text from my sister-in-law. Unexpectedly, the message went something like this. I know in the past I haven't been nice to you and I would like to apologize. I have to admit that I didn't fully accept you as my family before, but now I've gotten past the prejudice I have against you and would like to get to know you better. I would like to have dinner with you and Max this weekend. Let me know if you both are available. I showed the message to Max, and he was wary about going, but I thought this might give us a chance to work everything out. And since she was extending an olive branch, first we discussed it and I convinced him to go. I let her know as well that we would be coming, and she seemed happy about it. When we met Olivia, she warmly welcomed us into her new place with Isaac. It was clear that Isaac was a wealthy guy since he was much older than all of us. He had a modern home with a lot of gadgets, and Isaac, after introducing himself, got to know my husband around the place. Isaac apparently also had a dedicated shelf for all his collectibles while the men were busy. Me and Olivia got to talking. She apologized to me for her behavior and told me how after marrying Isaac, she had changed a politely smile to let her know that it was all water under the bridge. Olivia then went on to explain why she hated me. She told me how I had changed Max and that he seemed more confident and happier. After meeting him, I pointed out to her how this was a good thing, but she said how her brother had been in low contact with them for so long, but only reached out because of me. So she felt jealous that I could make him do such a thing. Although what she told me didn't make any sense to me, I simply nodded since I wanted to get this over with. Then she started to talk about how much happier she was. Now, so she could finally let go of her jealousy. She talked about how rich Isaac was and that she never had to work ever again. She brought up his various assets and how many cars he had, even though I never even asked about it. She then asked me how my work was going, and I told her about my recent promotion and fulfilling my work. I genuinely love designing, so sometimes I can ramble on about my work. Olivia immediately changed the subject and started to ask me invasive questions like when I would get married to her brother. I told her that we had discussed, but we were in no hurry because we both believed that things happen at the right time. Olivia scoffed and told me that this was all BS and that I needed to push Max to propose to me so that I don't get too old later to have children. This made me laugh, and I told her how me and Max never wanted kids, and we were fine with how our relationship was going. This made Olivia's eyes widen in shock, and she started to say how, as a woman, it was our duty to give birth, and even asked me why I was with Max if I didn't want to give him children. I felt so irritated with her, invasive this, and told her that her brother and I were adults enough to decide what we wanted. She then got pissed and then started yelling for Max. When Max and Isaac came running into the room while I sat feeling shocked by her behavior, Olivia demanded Max tell her if he had any idea about the type of woman he was marrying. Since I had no interest in continuing his bloodline, Max laughed at her words, just like I had done a few moments ago, and asked if she realized how ridiculous she sounded right now. Olivia got even more angry and raised her voice, saying that she was going to tell their parents and that they would never allow him to marry me. Max yelled back that no one could refrain him from marrying me if he wanted to, and that because of narcissistic and controlling behavior, he never wanted to ever get back in touch with her. They were getting more heated, so I asked Max if we could leave, and he agreed. Isaac apologized to us repeatedly while Olivia stood there, glaring at me. Later in our car ride home, I burst out crying, since I felt really bad about what she had told me. I asked Max seriously if he wanted to have children, but he assured me that he never wanted one, and that I should not allow Olivia's backward thinking to mess with my head. He assured me that if he had wanted anything different, then he would not even be with me. I felt a bit better after that. I don't know if Olivia ever did talk to their parents about what I had told her, but thankfully they never reached out to me saying anything. Max's parents have continued to meet with us and whenever they could, and they have never brought up anything, she told them, after this incident. I block Olivia from all my social media because I was truly done with her this year. Max proposed to me at our favorite date spot. and ever since then we have been busy with our wedding preparations. Our parents are really happy for us and have congratulated us on our upcoming nuptials. Olivia did find out from her parents and sent Max a text message simply saying, "I hope you know what you're doing," which pissed him off. I also felt sad that she had continued to hold a grudge against me to this day. Now, this is where things got even more complicated with her. 2 months back, my fiance, I had a headache and wasn't feeling too good, so I ordered to whip up his favorite dish. Realizing we were short on some ingredients, I decided to hit the grocery store. The first one I went to didn't have everything I needed, so I ended up driving around a bit until I found another store in a different parts of town. As I strolled through the shopping complex on my way to the store, I happened to pass by a cafe, and to my surprise, I spotted my sister-in-law cozying up with some guy. At first I thought it might be Isaac, but after a second look, I realized the guy looked close to her age with brown hair. They were holding hands and sharing kisses, acting all giggly and chatty like teenagers. This was quite a shocker for me because as far as I knew, sister-in-law was still married to Isaac. If they had broken up, my fiance's parents would have definitely informed us in a state of disbelief. I couldn't resist taking a few pictures as my eyes confirmed of what I was witnessing. She never even noticed me as she was so busy with the guy. Later, when I came back home, my hands were shaking. Max knew something was wrong and came to talk to me. I spilled out everything and he was taken aback, just like me. He asked me to 2 to 3 times if I was sure about what I had seen. I nodded yes and even showed him pictures. He saw each picture closely and agreed that it was definitely not Isaac about this. But I didn't know if this was a good idea, since I didn't want Olivia to fight with him again. He assured me that he would be careful and have a talk with Isaac, man to man, and told me how, as Olivia's husband, Isaac deserves to know the truth, so we can Max talk to Isaac privately. It turns out that Isaac was shocked to find out that Olivia had been cheating on him with a much younger guy. But what is even more shocking is the Olivia is pregnant. Yes, pregnant. Apparently, they had just found out, and she has kept this on the wrap since then because she has been waiting for the right time to announce Isaac was floored that Olivia could do something like this to him, and thankful to Max for telling him. He begged us to not tell Olivia anything about this and that he would take care of it soon. Max agreed, and since then, we have kept our noses out of it. Now we had our wedding last week. Max's parents have convinced us to invite Olivia also since she was family and told us how it would look bad if she was missing. We agreed just to shut them up, and I firmly told them that they needed to talk to her and make sure that she didn't make a scene in our wedding. His parents agreed, and we believed them on the day of our wedding. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. Our ceremony went well, and we moved on to the reception. When it came to giving speeches, my parents gave a beautiful speech about me, and my dad teared up saying how his baby girl had finally grown up. Dad also gave a speech and thanked me for bringing the family close, which was so sweet to their heart. Honestly, out of the corner of my eye, sister-in-law attempting to grab the microphone from father-in-law. While it might seem innocent to others, I know her well enough to not take any chances. I had already tipped off my bridesmaids to instruct the DJ to cut the mic if sister-in-law ever tried to take control. When Olivia attempted to speak into the microphone, she quickly realized that her voice wasn't carrying, and she glanced around. Max and I simply acted like we had no idea. Later, when my maid of honor, Martha, took the mic from sister-in-law and the DJ turned it on, Olivia must have realized that we deliberately cut her off. She started to scream in the middle of my office speech about how dare we not let her speak and how she had an important announcement. She tried to grab the mic from Mafa, who refused to give it to her. We then watched in horror as Olivia angrily got up onto her chair and started to speak loudly about how she had known all along. Jealous I was about her that I was such a bridezilla to not let her speak at my wedding. People watched her in confusion and shock, and she then continued to announce that she was pregnant, and she wanted to reveal this today, since she felt this was the perfect time. We all loved ones gathered around. She then smiled and looked around, hoping for people to stop, to congratulate her. However, everyone just looked around awkwardly. Max's parents looked past, whispered to Olivia to not embarrass them further, and that she needed to sit back down in her seat. But this just made Olivia go red in embarrassment. She glanced at me and started to yell if I was happy for doing this to my own husband's family, and that this is why she never wanted her brother to marry a loose woman like me. Max, who had up until then tried to remain calm for the sake of me, got up from his chair and looked like he was going to give her a thrashing of her life. However, before we could react, Isaac, who was sitting beside Olivia, took the mic from Mafa, and he apologized to us for Olivia's behavior and then congratulated us on our wedding. Then he turned to Olivia and told her that he never wanted to do this publicly, but she needed to be taught a lesson. Olivia looked at him confusingly, while Isaac went on to say about how it was true that Olivia was indeed pregnant, but that he was not the father of the child. The crowd gasped, and I couldn't help but cringe knowing where this was heading. Olivia's expression turned sour. Isaac turned to her and announced, "Let's first figure out who is a father to your children, is then worry about the announcement," and smirked at her. Max's parents, who was silent, asked what he meant, and this is when he showed them pictures from his phone about how Olivia had been cheating on him for the past 2 months with another guy. Thankfully, Isaac never once threw me and Max under the bus and simply continued to say how he had become suspicious about her behavior and had hired API who had clicked all these pictures. Max's parents glanced through the pictures in disgust and horror, while the guests continued to whisper. Olivia sat speechless throughout all of this, perhaps trying to comprehend the fact that she could not hide the truth anymore. Max then seized the opportunity and asked Olivia to get out of our wedding, and that he was embarrassed by being related to a woman like her. She burst out crying, holding up her things, and left. After this debacle, we tried to save the rest of the wedding, but everyone was just too riled up about what Olivia had done to Isaac and us. All anyone could talk about was her affair and her pregnancy. It was really embarrassing for us and Max's parents also. And since then, I've been getting emails from random email addresses, which clearly belong to my sister-in-law, threatening me that she wants to finish me because apparently this is all my fault, and that I should have just let her announce her pregnancy so she would not have been publicly humiliated. I have shown these messages to Max and he believes we have done nothing wrong. And this was all her own doing. He might be biased. So here I am asking Ada for being too harsh on my sister-in-law and not allowing her to announce her pregnancy. Update 1. Wow. When I posted this, I hoped a few people would tell me if I did anything wrong. For now, there are hundreds of comments on my post, calling my sister-in-law an asshole. This post has blown up in a few days. First of all, thank you for showing me that she is a crazy, as I have always fought her to be. To answer some of your questions. Yes, Isaac has informed us that he will be getting a divorce from Olivia. Yes, I will be forwarding all screenshots of her mail to Isaac, which will definitely come in handy for this court proceeding. Now, we haven't yet talked with Max's parents, but because we are still in our honeymoon and this is quite a heavy topic, so we plan on meeting them face to face for this conversation. Yes, my parents and my relatives were just as shocked as everyone, and my parents continue to check up on me every day as they are shaken up by how Olivia behaved towards me. I think for such a long time, I hope that she and I would become at least cordial, that I have forgotten to notice just how manipulative and narcissistic she truly is. It is only now, when my family is pointing it out and assuring me that they have my back, that I feel confident enough in my decision to cut her out of our lives, even if Max's parents might resist it. Update 2. So we got a chance to talk with Max's parents now that we are back from our honeymoon. They are extremely embarrassed, to say the least. They have informed us that they have cut off Olivia, which was completely unexpected for us to hear. They continue to tell us how Olivia wanted to move back in with them since Isaac kicked her out, but they refused to even let her in. In the end, she had to go and stay with one of her friends. Max informed his parents that what Olivia had done in our wedding was unforgivable, and moving forward, we would like no contact with her whatsoever. If they ever changed their minds and wanted us to include Olivia again, then we would also cut them off if we had to. Max's mother started to cry, talking about how painful all of this was and that she never expected Olivia to do something like this. I don't know how true they will remain to their word, but I'm glad that my husband is a no-nonsense person. Unlike me, so I know he will never allow her back into our lives. I'm glad that we are done with Olivia completely. Update 3. It has been 8 months since my last update, and I just wanted to update. The Isaac has finally divorced Olivia. Isaac informed us that Olivia did admit to everything. Towards the end, she confessed that she had been seeing this guy on the side, and it was purely physical. But she got pregnant. She never wanted any relationship with him, so she had hoped that she could get away with it since she was at fault for having an affair, and they didn't have any children. She would not be getting any alimony from him due to this. Olivia begged Isaac to let her keep one of his cars, at least as a keepsake, but Isaac refused. She then started to cry about how he had no one to depend on during her pregnancy, since the father of the child had abandoned her also, but Isaac let her know that it was none of his business anymore. We continue to remain in touch with Isaac despite his divorce. Max and Haley have grown closer in the past few months. They sometimes meet during the weekend to play video games. Max's parents have not talked to Olivia, so I am guessing she is truly alone for her child's sake. I hope she makes the right decisions moving forward. Story 6. After I got an injury, my parents said, "We can't afford to help you with bills," then bought my brother a house. I afforded my own life, without them. But now they want my help. But they can't afford my forgiveness now. Hey Reddit. So this is a story about how my parents let me struggle through a serious injury that cost me my job and nearly my entire savings, claiming they were broke, then turned around and dropped a down payment on a house for my little brother. And now, they're crawling back asking for help because karma finally caught up with them. Buckle up because this one's a ride. I'm Jake, 32 male, and I've been on my own since I was 18. Not because I wanted some adventure or independence or anything dramatic like that. Just because my parents made it clear early on that I was the kid who needed to figure things out on my own, while my younger brother Nathan got the full family support package. Growing up, the favoritism was so obvious it would have been funny if it wasn't my life. Nathan could do no wrong. Forgot his homework? Mom would drive it to school? Failed a test? Dad would march in demanding the teacher explain why his son wasn't getting proper instruction. Got caught drinking at 16? Just boys being boys. Everyone experiments. Me? I got a C on one assignment in sophomore year and got grounded for a month. No phone, no hanging out, just homework and chores. When I pointed out the double standard, Dad hit me with the classic line that still makes my blood boil. Nathan needs more support because he's sensitive. You're tough enough to handle it. Translation? We don't feel like parenting you, so we're going to call it character building. I worked through high school because I knew college wasn't going to pay for itself. Dad managed a mid-sized warehouse making decent money. Mom worked part-time at an insurance office. They weren't rich, but they weren't struggling either. Could have helped me with school. Chose not to. You'll appreciate your education more if you earn it yourself, Mom told me when I asked about help with tuition. Meanwhile, Nathan's college fund sat there untouched, growing interest, waiting for him to decide what he wanted to major in. Spoiler alert, he never did figure that out. I went to community college for 2 years, then transferred to state school. Lived in the cheapest apartment I could find with 3 roommates. Worked full-time at a warehouse during summer and winter breaks, part-time during school. Graduated with a degree in logistics management and about 28 grand in student loans. Started working at a shipping company right out of college. Entry-level position moving boxes and learning inventory systems. Wasn't glamorous, but I was good at it. Worked my way up over 6 years to a supervisor position, making about $52,000 a year. Enough to cover my loans, rent a decent 1-bedroom apartment, and actually save a little each month. Nathan, meanwhile, dropped out of college after a year and a half. Just stopped going to classes. When my parents found out, they weren't even mad. Just disappointed in a soft way that came with 0 consequences. He moved back home rent-free and spent the next 2 years bouncing between part-time gigs at coffee shops and retail stores. Every family dinner became this weird therapy session where my parents would talk about Nathan finding his path and discovering his passion, like he was on some spiritual journey instead of just being lazy and directionless. When I'd mention my promotions or pay raises, I'd get a distracted, "That's nice, honey," before the conversation pivoted back to Nathan's latest existential crisis about whether he should apply to art school or try to become a real estate agent, or maybe learn to code. The injury happened last October. We were doing inventory in one of the main warehouses, and I was up on a scissor lift checking stock on the high shelves. Safety protocol says you're supposed to have a spotter, and the lift should be on a level surface. But we were behind schedule, and my manager was pushing everyone to move faster. I was reaching for a clipboard that had fallen behind some boxes when the whole lift shifted. The ground wasn't as level as I thought, and the weight distribution was off. Thing tipped sideways, and I went down about 12 feet, landed hard on my left side. The impact broke my collarbone, fractured 3 ribs, and did something nasty to my shoulder that required surgery. The pain was unreal. Couldn't breathe without feeling like someone was stabbing me. Couldn't move my arm. Just laid there on the concrete warehouse floor trying not to pass out while my coworkers called for help. Hospital, surgery, physical therapy, the whole thing. Doctors said I'd be out of work for at least 4 months. Maybe 6 depending on how well I healed. Workers' comp would cover the medical bills, but only pay a percentage of my salary. And my company had this policy where, if you were out on medical leave for more than 90 days, they could terminate your position. Did the math real quick and realized I was looking at losing about $2,500 a month in income for potentially half a year. Plus, I'd need help with basic stuff, because I literally couldn't lift my arm above my waist or carry anything heavier than a coffee cup. Called my parents from the hospital the day after surgery. Explained the situation. Told them I was going to be in rough shape financially and might need to borrow some money to cover rent and bills while I recovered. Maybe crash with them for a month or 2 since I couldn't really take care of myself yet. Dad's response? "Jake, we'd love to help, but money's really tight right now. Your mother's hours got cut and we've got our own bills to worry about. You're gonna have to figure something out. Mom got on the phone and basically echoed the same thing. Added some nonsense about how I was always so independent and capable. Surely I could work something out. Maybe ask my friends for help. Look into government assistance programs. I was in a hospital bed, high on pain medication, could barely move, and my parents were telling me to figure it out on my own. The betrayal hit different than the favoritism I'd grown up with. This wasn't about getting less attention or fewer privileges. This was about actually needing help and being told no. My buddy Carlos came through, though. He and his wife had just bought a house with an extra bedroom, and they offered to let me stay with them while I recovered. Wouldn't even let me pay rent, just said to help with groceries when I could. Family's supposed to help family, Carlos said when I tried to thank him for the 100th time. And sometimes your real family ain't the people you're related to. Moving in with them was humbling in ways I didn't expect. I'd always been the independent guy who handled his own problems. Now I needed help with everything. Carlos had to carry my bags up the stairs because I couldn't lift anything. Amy set up the bedroom with everything on my right side since I couldn't use my left arm. The first night there, I just sat on the edge of the bed and cried. Not from physical pain, though that was brutal. From the realization that strangers were treating me better than my own parents. Carlos knocked on the door, came in without saying anything, and just sat there with me until I pulled myself together. Those first few months were brutal. Physical therapy hurt worse than the original injury some days. I'd wake up in the middle of the night because I rolled onto my bad shoulder. Couldn't dress myself for weeks. Carlos's wife Amy had to help me with basic stuff like putting on shirts and cutting up food. The physical therapy sessions were their own special kind of hell. 3 times a week I'd go to this clinic where a therapist named Sandra would put me through exercises that felt like torture. Shoulder rotations, resistance bands, weight training with 2-pound dumbbells that felt like concrete blocks. Pain is your body healing, Sandra would say, while I gritted my teeth through another rep. You're rebuilding strength that the injury took away. Yeah, real inspirational stuff when you're sweating through your shirt, trying to lift your arm above your head. The mental aspect was worse than the physical sometimes. I'd been a supervisor, had people reporting to me, was on track for a management position. Now I was dependent on friends to help me shower, and couldn't even open a jar of peanut butter on my own. Carlos never made me feel like a burden, though. He'd joke about how I was finally learning what it was like to be humble. His wife would laugh and tell him to shut up, then ask if I needed help with anything. Their kids, 2 boys aged 6 and 8, thought I was like a fun uncle who lived with them. They'd draw me pictures and leave them on my nightstand. One night, about 6 weeks in, I was having a particularly bad evening. Pain was worse than usual, and I'd just gotten another email from the company saying they still weren't sure when I could come back. I was sitting in their living room just staring at nothing when Amy sat down next to me. You doing okay? Not really. Feel like everything's falling apart and I can't do anything to stop it. She nodded. When Carlos got laid off from his job 3 years ago, before we had the boys, we almost lost everything. Credit cards maxed out, behind on rent, eating ramen for weeks straight. It was the darkest period of our life. I hadn't known that. Carlos had never mentioned it. What got you through it? Each other, and accepting help when it was offered. Carlos had this thing where he felt like asking for help was admitting failure. Took him months to finally accept that sometimes you need people. That needing help doesn't make you weak. I hate needing help. I know, but the people who care about you don't see it as a burden. They see it as a chance to show up for someone they care about. Let us help you, Jake. That's what family does. That conversation stuck with me. Started trying to be better about accepting their help instead of fighting it all the time. The financial hit was worse than I expected. Even with workers' comp covering some of it, I burned through my savings trying to keep up with rent on my apartment, my car payment, insurance, student loans, all of it. By month 3, I was basically broke. Had to sell my car just to cover bills. Started missing loan payments, credit score tanked, and through all of this, my parents never called to check on me. Not once. I'd text updates sometimes and get back these short responses like, glad you're healing or hang in there. Nothing substantial. No offers to visit. No asking if I needed anything. Meanwhile, I'm seeing Nathan post on social media about family dinners at my parents' house, weekend trips to the lake, all the normal family stuff, just without me. Month 4. I finally got medical clearance to return to work. Except my position had been filled, and the company offered me a lower-level job at $38,000. Take it or leave it. I took it because I needed income, but it stung. 6 years of working my way up, gone because I got hurt doing my job. My caseworker said I could probably sue for wrongful termination or something, but lawyers cost money I didn't have. So I swallowed it and went back to basically where I started. Started rebuilding slowly. Moved into a cheaper apartment. Picked up a used car. Created a strict budget to start clawing my way out of the hole. Carlos and Amy helped me move. Helped me get set up. Still wouldn't let me pay them back for the months I stayed with them. This whole time, I'm getting random texts from my mom asking about Christmas plans or my birthday. Surface level stuff. Never acknowledging that she'd left me to drown when I actually needed help. And I played along because what else was I gonna do? They're still my parents. Then came Thanksgiving. Mom texted asking if I was coming to dinner. I said yeah because the alternative was eating alone, and I figured I could handle one awkward family meal. Carlos offered to let me spend Thanksgiving with his family instead. You don't owe them your presents, man. Especially not after how they treated you. But I wanted to see them. Needed to see them, actually. Part of me was still hoping for some kind of acknowledgement or apology. That they'd see how I'd struggled and maybe feel bad about leaving me hanging. Stupid hope, but hope nonetheless. Showed up at their house and immediately noticed something was different. New furniture in the living room. Big sectional couch that definitely cost a few grand. New TV mounted on the wall, had to be at least 65 inches. Kitchen had been renovated at some point. New granite countertops, fancy backsplash, stainless steel appliances. The place looked good. Really good. Like they'd spent serious money recently. Walking through that door and seeing all the upgrades was like getting punched in the gut. While I'd been selling my car to make rent, they'd been remodeling their kitchen. Nathan was there looking pleased with himself, wearing some designer hoodie I knew cost at least $200. He gave me this weird bro hug that I barely returned. Mom fussed over the turkey like she was on some cooking show. Dad sat in his new recliner watching football. Barely acknowledged me when I came in. Dinner was tense from the start. Nobody mentioned my injury or asked how I was doing. The conversation stayed surface level. Weather, local news, what movie Nathan saw last weekend. I sat there pushing mashed potatoes around my plate, watching my family act like the past year hadn't happened. Then about halfway through dinner, Nathan couldn't contain his excitement anymore. Started talking about this apartment he was looking at. Turns out my parents had been helping him search for a place to buy. An actual house. They were talking about down payments and mortgage rates and interest locks. And I'm sitting there doing mental math that wasn't adding up. The real estate market is crazy right now, Dad was saying. But we found this great opportunity in Riverside. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, nice little yard. Perfect starter home. Mom nodded enthusiastically. And the neighborhood is up and coming. Great investment. Nathan was practically bouncing in his seat. I've never lived anywhere that was actually mine, you know? It's gonna be so cool. I felt something cold settling in my stomach. Wait, I interrupted. You guys are helping Nathan buy a house? The table went quiet. Dad looked at me like I'd asked a stupid question. Well, yeah. He can't live with us forever. It's time he got his own place. How much are you helping him with? My parents exchanged this look. The kind of look that said they hadn't planned on having this conversation in front of me. Mom did that thing where she tries to make something sound smaller than it is. Spoke in that overly casual tone that meant she was about to say something she knew I wouldn't like. We're just giving him a little help with the down payment. Nothing major. How much? Nathan, bless his complete lack of self-awareness, jumped in excited. Couldn't read the room to save his life. They're giving me $50,000 for the down payment. Isn't that awesome? I found this great 3-bedroom place in Riverside that's only $285,000. With their help, I can actually afford it. The mortgage payment is going to be like $1,800 a month, but I can swing that with my job. The room went dead quiet. I must have had a look on my face because even Nathan shut up. Mom was suddenly very interested in her green beans. Dad cleared his throat and reached for his water glass. $50,000. These people who couldn't afford to help me with rent while I recovered from a serious injury had somehow scraped together 50 grand to buy my brother a house. That's great, I said, voice flat. Real generous of you guys. Dad picked up on my tone. Don't start, Jake. This is different. How exactly is it different? Nathan needs this. He's been struggling to find his direction, and having his own place will give him stability and motivation. I laughed. Couldn't help it. The absurdity was too much. I needed help 8 months ago when I literally couldn't work and you told me money was tight. But Nathan needs a house so suddenly you've got 50 grand lying around? Mom jumped in with her peacekeeping voice. Jake, we've been saving that money for years. It's not the same as having extra money for emergencies. Saving it for what? For him specifically? The silence was my answer. Right. So you've had this money the whole time. You just decided helping me wasn't a priority. Nathan tried to defend them. Dude, it's not like that. They were gonna help you, but what? I never asked. You never needed it. You always figure stuff out. There it was again. That same line I'd heard my whole life. I was too capable, too independent, too good at handling my own problems to deserve actual support. I needed it, I said quietly. I asked for help and you said no. I slept on a friend's couch for 3 months because I couldn't afford rent. I sold my car. I maxed out my credit cards and destroyed my credit score. I needed help and you left me to figure it out while saving money to buy him a house. Dad's face was getting red. We made a decision about how to use our money. You're an adult. You don't get to dictate what we do with our finances. You're absolutely right. It's your money. Spend it however you want. But don't expect me to pretend this is okay. And don't expect me to keep showing up to family dinners like nothing happened. I got up and left. Didn't even grab my coat. Just walked out and sat in my car for 20 minutes trying to calm down before driving home. That was 8 months ago. Haven't spoken to them since except for a few text exchanges that went nowhere. They tried the guilt trip route at first. Mom sent these long messages about how families should stick together and how hurt they were that I was being distant. Full paragraphs about how they'd always loved me and didn't understand why I was pulling away, playing the victim like she was the injured party here. Dad sent shorter messages, basically telling me to grow up and stop being dramatic. You're too old to throw tantrums over family decisions, one text read. We did what we thought was best for Nathan. You need to move on. Move on. Right. Like they'd just accidentally forgotten to call me back and not deliberately left me to struggle through a medical crisis. Nathan sent me one text that just said, "Sorry, bro," and nothing else. Didn't even have the guts to call. Probably typed it while sitting on the couch my parents bought him for his new house. I focused on rebuilding my life without them. Worked overtime whenever I could. My supervisor was cool about letting me take extra shifts since I'd proven myself reliable. Started picking up Saturday shifts at time and a half, sometimes pulling 55 to 60-hour weeks. The grind was brutal, but necessary. Every paycheck I'd split between paying down debt and building my emergency fund back up. Made a detailed spreadsheet tracking every dollar, every debt, every goal. Carlos called it my revenge budget. Getting my life together was the best middle finger I could give my parents. Got a second part-time gig doing inventory consulting for smaller companies on weekends. One of my former coworkers had started a consulting business and needed someone who knew inventory systems. 3 hours on Sunday mornings counting stock and organizing warehouses for local businesses. Extra $400 a month that went straight to debt. It was exhausting. Working Monday through Friday at my regular job, Saturday overtime shifts, Sunday morning consulting gigs. My social life was non-existent. Dated a woman for about 2 months before she got tired of me always being busy. Couldn't even blame her. Who wants to date someone who works 7 days a week? But the numbers were moving in the right direction. Credit card balances dropping. Emergency fund growing. Credit score ticking up point by point. Started hitting milestones that felt huge. Paying off one credit card completely. Getting my credit score over 650. Saving up a $1,000 emergency fund. Carlos became like the brother I should have had. Real family. Chosen family. He helped me create a financial recovery plan. Introduced me to his financial advisor friend who gave me free advice. Kept me sane through the worst of it. His family included me in everything. Birthdays, holidays, random barbecues. Never made me feel like charity or a burden. This is what family does, Amy told me once when I tried to thank her for probably the 100th time. We show up for each other. Not just when it's convenient, but when it's hard. That's what makes it real. Their kids started calling me Uncle Jake. Would make me birthday cards and Christmas cards with crayon drawings. The younger one, Danny, asked me once why I didn't spend holidays with my other family. Because they're not really my family, I told him. You guys are. What makes us your family if we're not related? Carlos overheard and jumped in. Family isn't about being related, buddy. It's about who shows up when you need them. The kid thought about that for a second, then shrugged and went back to his coloring. But the words stuck with me. My credit score started recovering faster than I expected. All those on-time payments adding up. Paid off my credit cards completely by month 6. The feeling of zeroing out that last balance was better than Christmas. Actually cried a little looking at the payment confirmation. Got promoted back to a supervisor position at work with a pay bump to $48,000. Not where I was before the injury, but climbing back. My boss pulled me aside after announcing the promotion and said he'd watched how I'd handled adversity, and it showed character. That I was the kind of person he wanted in leadership. That meant more to me than he probably knew. Being recognized for working hard and pushing through difficulty instead of just being given handouts because someone felt sorry for me. Found a better apartment in a decent neighborhood. 2 bedrooms because I wanted actual space. Had a balcony where I could sit in the evenings and just breathe. No roommates, no favors, just my own place that I paid for with my own money. Signed that lease feeling proud in a way I hadn't felt in years. Bought a reliable used car. Nothing fancy, just a Honda Civic with 80,000 miles that ran great. Paid cash for it using money I'd saved from all those extra shifts. The dealer looked surprised when I pulled out the envelope of bills. Felt good to make a major purchase without financing anything. Things were looking up. I was climbing out of the hole my injury and my family's abandonment had dug for me. Doing it completely on my own terms with help from people who actually gave a damn about me. Then 2 weeks ago, I got a call from an unknown number. Normally I don't answer those, but something made me pick up. Maybe curiosity, maybe just bad timing. It was Nathan. He sounded stressed. Voice had that edge to it that meant he was trying to stay calm, but failing. Started with some awkward small talk asking how I was doing like we just talked yesterday instead of not speaking for months. Asked about my job, my apartment, if I was seeing anyone. All surface level stuff that we both knew wasn't why he called. Listen, he finally said after about 2 minutes of dancing around it. I know things have been weird between us and the parents. I should have reached out sooner. It was awkward, you know? After Thanksgiving and everything. Is there a point to this call, Nathan? Yeah, right. So I'm in a bit of a situation and I was hoping you could help me out. I almost hung up right there, but curiosity got the better of me. Had to hear what kind of situation required calling the brother he'd ghosted for months. What kind of situation? The house they helped me buy? I'm having trouble making the mortgage payments. I thought my job was solid, but they cut my hours back in January, and I'm barely covering bills. The utilities alone are killing me. 3 bedrooms means heating and cooling costs are crazy. Plus the HOA fees that I didn't really budget for properly. And the property taxes were higher than I expected. He was spiraling now, words coming faster like he'd been holding this in for a while. I'm like 3 months behind on the mortgage, and the bank is sending warning letters. Got one that says they're starting foreclosure proceedings if I don't catch up by next month. I've tried everything, man. Picked up extra shifts when they're available, cut back on eating out, even sold some stuff. But it's not enough. Sorry to hear that. What's this got to do with me? Long pause. Could hear him breathing on the other end. I was hoping you could loan me some money, just to get caught up. Maybe like 5 grand? I'll pay you back, I swear. Soon as I get my hours back to normal, I'll send you monthly payments. We can draw up a contract or whatever you want. The audacity. The sheer audacity of this kid. My brother who'd watched my parents hand him $50,000 while I struggled through an injury. Who'd sent 1 2-word text in 8 months. Who'd never once asked how I was doing or if I needed anything. This guy was calling me for a loan. Let me get this straight. Mom and Dad gave you $50,000 for a house you can't afford. You're 3 months behind on your mortgage. And you're calling me, the brother you haven't spoken to in almost a year, to ask for 5 grand? I'm desperate, man. I don't know what else to do. I've tried everything. Have you asked Mom and Dad for help? Another long pause. This one said everything. They can't help. They've got their own money problems right now. That got my attention. Sat up straighter in my chair. What kind of money problems? I don't know all the details. Dad doesn't talk about it much. But something about his job not working out and some investments that went bad. They lost a chunk of money somewhere. They're selling the house. Wait, hold up. My parents were selling their house? The house they'd lived in for 20 years? The house they'd just renovated with new furniture and appliances? They're selling the house? Their house? Yeah, they're downsizing to an apartment or something, moving into a 2-bedroom place across town. It's a whole thing. Mom's really upset about it, but Dad says they don't have a choice. Something about needing to access the equity to cover debts. The pieces were starting to fit together in my head. They'd spent their savings buying Nathan a house. Something went wrong with Dad's job. Now they were broke and selling their house to stay afloat. And Nathan was about to lose his house because they couldn't bail him out anymore. But anyway, about that loan, I cut him off. Nathan, I'm not giving you 5 grand. I'm not giving you $5. You're on your own. Jake, please. I'm gonna lose the house. Then you lose the house. Should have thought about that before buying something you couldn't afford. You're really gonna let me become homeless over this? Over some grudge about stuff that happened last year? The lack of self-awareness was stunning. This isn't about a grudge. This is about consequences. You made choices. Bad ones. That's not my problem to fix. What happened to family helping family? I laughed again. Same hollow laugh from that Thanksgiving dinner. You mean like how our parents helped me when I was injured and broke? Oh wait, they didn't. Or like how you and them stayed in touch and checked on me during the worst time of my life. Oh wait, that didn't happen either. That kind of family help? I said I was sorry. You sent a text that said sorry, bro. That's not an apology. That's a cop-out. And now you want money? Nah. Figure it out yourself. You're capable and independent, right? I hung up before he could respond. 2 days later, my phone rang again. Mom this time. Jake, we need to talk. About what? About your brother. He told us you refused to help him with his mortgage situation. That's right. I did refuse. How can you be so cold? He's your brother. He's going to lose everything. Everything you gave him, you mean. The house he couldn't afford that you enabled him to buy. That everything? She made this frustrated sound. This isn't about the past. This is about him needing help right now. Funny how it's only about the present when you need something from me. When I needed help, it was also about the present and you couldn't be bothered. That's not fair, Jake. Our financial situation was different then. Was it though? Because you had $50,000 saved up. You just chose not to use any of it to help me. Dad grabbed the phone. I could hear the exchange in the background. His voice came through tight and controlled. Jake, your mother and I made decisions we thought were best at the time. We're not going to apologize for helping your brother get started in life. I'm not asking for an apology. You called me, remember? We're calling because we need you to be reasonable. Nathan needs $5,000, or he's going to lose his house. You're in a position to help him, and you're choosing not to out of spite. I'm choosing not to because it's not my responsibility. He's an adult. You guys are adults. I'm not a bank. And even if I was, I wouldn't loan money to people who've proven they can't manage it. This is what's wrong with your generation. No sense of family obligation. That one made me laugh. My generation? This from the man who watched me struggle and did nothing? Dad, I've got family obligations. To myself. To the people who actually showed up for me when I needed them. That doesn't include you guys anymore. Mom took the phone back. Her voice was different now. Smaller. Jake, we're in trouble. Real trouble. Your father lost his job 6 months ago. We've been burning through our savings. That's why we're selling the house. We were hoping to help Nathan keep his place and move in with him for a while until we get back on our feet. The whole picture clicked into place. They'd spent their savings helping Nathan buy a house he couldn't afford. Dad lost his job. Now they were broke and planning to move in with Nathan. Except Nathan was about to lose the house. So their backup plan was falling apart and they needed me to bail them out. That sounds really difficult, I said. I'm sorry you're going through that. So you'll help? Absolutely not. Silence on the other end. You're going to let your parents end up homeless? The same way you let me struggle through an injury that cost me my job and my savings? Yeah, I am. Figure it out. You're resourceful people. You'll find a way. Jake, please. I'm done with this conversation. Don't call me again asking for money. Don't call me at all unless you're ready to actually acknowledge what you did and why it was wrong. Until then, we've got nothing to talk about. I hung up and blocked their numbers. Blocked Nathan too. Then I sat down and had a drink because my hands were shaking. Carlos called that night like he somehow knew I needed to talk. Told him everything. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he said, "Good for you, man. They made their choices. They don't get to guilt you into fixing their mess after they left you hanging." Part of me feels terrible, though. They're my parents. Being someone's parent doesn't give you a free pass to treat them like garbage and then demand help when you need it. You offered them a chance to be family when you needed them. They said no. Now they get to live with that decision. He was right. I knew he was right. But it still felt weird, like I was doing something wrong by protecting myself. The next few days, I got texts from relatives I barely knew. Aunts and uncles I hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly very concerned about family unity and forgiveness. Clearly, my parents had been working the phone tree trying to drum up pressure, playing the victim card with anyone who'd listen. My mom's cousin Linda texted, "I heard about the situation with your parents. They're really struggling and need family support right now. Blood is thicker than water, Jake." I replied, "The full quote is, 'The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb,' meaning chosen relationships are stronger than family bonds." Funny how people always forget that part. My Uncle Gary called directly. Didn't even bother with hello. "Jake, your mother called me in tears. She says you're refusing to help them when they're about to lose everything. That's not how we raised you kids to behave." With all due respect, Uncle Gary, you didn't raise me at all. You see me maybe twice a year at family events. You have no idea how they raised me or what our relationship is actually like. But they're your parents. They gave you life. They gave me life, then told me to handle it on my own when I needed help. I'm just following their example. He made some frustrated noise and launched into a speech about family obligation and respect. Told me I was being immature and selfish, that I'd regret this decision when they were gone. All the classic guilt trip lines people use when they don't actually understand the situation, but feel entitled to judge anyway. I let him finish his speech, then said, "Are you done? Because I've got to get ready for work. You know, that thing I do to support myself since my parents taught me to be so independent." Didn't hear back from him after that, or from Linda, or from most of the other flying monkeys my parents sent my way. They'd deliver their guilt trip message, I'd push back, and they'd disappear back to their own lives. Easy to judge from the outside when you're not the one who lived through it. One uncle actually had the nerve to text me, "Your parents gave you life. The least you can do is help them in their time of need." I replied, "They gave me life, then told me to handle it on my own. I'm just following their parenting philosophy." Didn't hear back from him after that. 3 weeks went by. Radio silence from my parents and Nathan. Then I got an email from my mom's account with the subject line, "Please read this." The email was long, like really long. Started with the usual guilt trip stuff about family and love and obligation. Then it shifted to blaming me for being stubborn and holding grudges. Said some pretty nasty things about how I'd always been the difficult child who needed to be right about everything. But at the end, there was this part that actually seemed honest for once. "Your father and I are scared. We don't know what's going to happen to us. We made mistakes with how we treated you, and we're sorry if you felt unsupported during your injury. But we need help now, and you're the only one who can provide it. Please don't abandon us the way you think we abandoned you." The apology was buried under so much other nonsense that it barely counted, and it was still focused on them and their needs. But it was something. I sat on that email for 2 days before responding, wrote and deleted probably 10 different replies before settling on what I actually sent. "Mom and Dad, I understand you're scared and struggling, and I know what that feels like because I lived through it not that long ago. The difference is I had to figure it out completely on my own while you had options and chose not to use them to help me. You're right that I felt unsupported during my injury. I didn't just feel that way. I was unsupported. I asked for help and you said no. You had money saved but decided it was more important to buy Nathan a house than to help your other son keep his apartment during a medical crisis. Those were your choices and you're entitled to make them. But I'm also entitled to make mine. And I choose not to involve myself in your financial situation. Not out of spite or revenge, but because I've learned that I can't count on you and you've learned you can't count on me. That's the relationship we built together. I don't wish you harm. I hope you find a way through this. But I'm not going to be the solution to problems you created. You taught me to be independent and self-sufficient. Congratulations, the lesson stuck. Take care of yourselves. I'm sure you'll figure something out. You're resourceful people." Jake. Sent it and then blocked their email too. I was done. Completely done. That was 3 months ago. Through the family grapevine, I heard they ended up moving into a small apartment across town. Nathan lost his house and moved back in with them. All 3 of them in a 2-bedroom apartment from what I understand. My aunt, who's actually decent, called me once to check in. She didn't pressure me to reconcile or help them out. Just wanted to make sure I was doing okay. "Your parents are telling everyone you're a terrible son who abandoned them," she said. "I wanted you to know that some of us know better. We've watched how they treated you over the years. Thanks. That actually means a lot. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Sometimes you have to let people face the consequences of their choices even when it's hard to watch." I appreciated that more than I could express. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.